Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Giuseppe Montesano, Jimmy Eat Soup, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Todd Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Revolter, J Mails 24, Unimento, M Iron 26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Canna Bear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Nothing flat earth related. I've seen that Rachie video though.
What Rachie video?
The one you just released yesterday.
I love the thumbnail for that.
Okay, that's because I've got a little bit more time on my hands. As much as... Actually, I did spend the entire weekend testing this stupid PC. Not this stupid PC, this very welcomed, really gratefully received. Thank you for the PC, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I had a bit more time on my hands. Things were looking up. I wasn't, desperately up against the wall trying to control this PC at that particular moment when I made that thumbnail. So yeah. Glad you liked it.
Hey, Nathan, have you heard from Paul?
Paul, the guy who bought the PC?
Yeah, it's like he vanished.
I'll keep in touch with Paul. Well, he's got in the last couple of days an invoice from the guy who spent the last 2 straight weeks working on my PC. So God only knows what that also will be. It was up to a couple of £100 last time I checked. So I did check it all with Paul. I was like, you are okay to pay this, right? Before I get him working on this, because he has done a significant amount of work and several home visits. He was all apologetic to me, actually, the computer guy. He was like, I should have paid more attention to the GPU to stop this was an extra home visit, right? And he, in his mind, thought it wasn't necessary. And I was like, you did exactly what you would expect to do on any other PC, which is figure out what thickness of thermal pads are with calipers, put them on, and then that's it, right? You test it, which we did, seemed okay, and then on you go, right? And he was like, yeah, I should spend more time doing it. I'm like, no. It needed 2 different levels and different thicknesses and different types of thermal pad along one row of chips because the socket was 2 different levels. You're not supposed to know that. It's crap on Monster Labo's part, but he wasn't supposed to know that. So, while he's like, oh, I should have paid more attention to it and tested more, like, don't feel guilty. The problem's now resolved. Hardware's all wonderful now, thanks to his dedication. And mine, to a certain extent, in that particular period. Not that I wasn't dedicating huge amounts of time to the PC anyway. But it's been resolved because of him, coming back and going, no, I will come back. And every time I've gone, no, it's still hitting this temperature. Clearly, there's still something wrong. He's come back almost immediately, or the following day at least. And, redone it. And then we've figured it out from there until it's been resolved. So it's like, I can't fault the guy. The amount of bloody home trips he ended up having to do. And he's only done them because now that he's got it bolted, the CPU now we're talking about, bolted correctly to the case, I'm reluctant to move it because the chassis itself does shift the cooler and the motherboard attached to it when you pick the case up. So now that it's in situ and working and all bolted down, albeit with 4 washers on the back of the motherboard, I don't want to move it anymore. I want it to stay exactly where it is. So I'm delighted that he's come to me and done home trips to figure out the GPU problem, because it meant I didn't have to stick it in the car, potentially loosening the really nice seal that I've got between the CPU cooler and its block and the CPU itself. Well, now that's nicely done, and that's been most of the 8 months of woes. I don't want to move the damn thing. But it crashed on Friday, that's why the show was cut short, and then what I then did was obviously contact him again, and as I suspected, Windows was corrupted. So what I did was reinstall Windows, and then it crashed again. I forgot, it's been a long weekend, but it crashed again over the weekend after a day of being fine and my niece coming over and both my daughters and her playing games together on the computer. Nothing wrong, worked perfectly. Following day, out of the blue, just crashed. I'm like, what the bloody hell? So, although it was probably unnecessary, I did another Windows reinstall and graphics driver reinstall. And it turned out that when this crashes stopped, which were endless yesterday, all I did, just because I couldn't get a game to... I thought I'll try a different game to test it with. So I downloaded Valorant or something, which is similar to the game I do play, Fortnite, to test. But I couldn't get that to work either. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll rotate the monitor because it wouldn't fit on the screen properly. So I rotated the monitor from portrait to landscape, the one that I monitor the show on. And again, that game didn't work, but Fortnite did, because that was what was kept crashing and indeed taking the system with it, depending on what was going on with the hardware. But it stopped crashing. It just started working again. So I flipped the monitor back to portrait. Hasn't crashed since. So like, oh, okay. Perhaps me having a strange orientation for one of the main monitor, that is to say my main monitor's in portrait, and it didn't like it. It just kept crashing. Flick it to landscape, run a couple of applications, restart it, flick it back to portrait, and now it seems fine. Doesn't mean my confidence level's very high for the show today. You know, given the amount of crashes I've had, even with the new hardware, which is now all definitely sorted, none of it's overheating anymore. I don't know if I've still got any software bugs. I've tested all weekend till it stopped crashing. So now we're back to about the point that I'd be if I'd done that with the original configuration, which is I'm reasonably confident we'll have a decent show and it won't crash. It might carry on as it is now forever. Now it's had a new Windows install. Now it's had a few new bits of hardware. I would hope the show will, like I say, I hope this will be the last time I ever mention this computer again. We shall see.
Well, I hope it is. Just for your mental well-being and the temperature of the room you have to sit in.
That's solved. That won't ever be a problem again.
We don't care. We just want a show.
Me too, Neil. Me too. I don't want to care about the computer either. However, first and foremost, it is the primary tool to get the show running, so I do have to concern myself with it. And, you know, yes, it will give me a nervous breakdown or a heart attack if it does continue much longer, especially now that hardware's started to be changed out. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Windows install having a few glitches when you first do it is not unexpected. And all the tweaking of hardware is not unexpected when you get a new piece of hardware. So all the things I'm doing, although, yes, it's off the back of 9 months of fiddling and doing similar things, it is kind of all normal. As I said at the end of last week, do you remember, Neil? I was like, no, this is just normal tweaking of a new PC, because it is kind of new. That's why I've called it Beast 2.0. But nothing's boiling, nothing's overheating, nothing's hitting thermal limits, nothing's throttling, it's not boiling the room. So from a hardware perspective, everything's functioning perfectly. None of the hardware's failing because of its overheating or a hardware problem, a physical PCB-related issue. None of that's an issue anymore. That all seems to be resolved, which was the main problem. Software, I can deal with that. You know, I can get around it, even if it is causing crashes like it did on Friday. Eventually, software instability will be resolved. Much, much easier than hardware instability.
I was going to change the subject to the Raichi thing.
And I took it back straight to computers. Sorry. It's on my mind a lot.
I understand that. But just to go back for a second, and not to pick on Raichi, but I felt like she had sort of a drowning man effect when y'all pointed out that it's not science, there's no viable hypothesis, and that it was an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy and a begging the question fallacy. It was almost like a drowning man trying to take other stuff down because she was trying to grab Coriolis and bring it down with her, I guess. Did you have that feeling from it?
Yes, there's another term. I was going to ask what you meant by drowning man, but I know what you mean now. The term you're going for is clutching at straws. So the term clutching at straws is precisely as you've just described. The straws are the straws at the side of the bank so that you can breathe through them as you drown. In other words, your likelihood of being able to survive with a reed from the edge that's got a hollow centre while you're dragged under the water are pretty limited. But the man who's reaching out for them and is about to drown, that's the man clutching at straws. So if you've ever heard that term, that's where that comes from. But that's exactly correct. So, well, if I can juxtapose this with Coriolis effect as I'm going down under the water. Exactly.
I mean, I felt bad for her in that moment, but you know, you made the claim, nobody else did. You know, you're the one that you jumped in that area of the pool. You should have been able to swim when you did it.
I've got less embarrassment for a failure in regards to the claim and more for being easily led by Dell. Because she was a carbon copy of what Dell did, and you can only imagine, I can only imagine because I don't watch Dell, the magic that he's had to spin to entice her, and she represents a lot of other people in this instance. Rachie, that is. So Rachie 00000 YouTube channel. She's obviously bought it. She's been suckered into it and is prepared to regurgitate the arguments to her detriment. Well, that to me is more embarrassing in terms of her judgment than it is in her inability to convince us with coherent arguments about why Earth would be rising up. That failure doesn't really faze me. It's like, yeah, well, you're gonna, you know, when you all laughed at me and like, well, you've got to get a lot wrong first. But it's more about your discernment in how you get things wrong in terms of your own investigative journey. Well, in her investigative journey, because you can tell it's just Dell's words out of her mouth, that's, to me, a little bit more embarrassing. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it.
Well, yeah, but like I can understand, you know, because when you go from the globe, you don't have anything, you know, and you're susceptible to BS. It's just getting so attached to that without an epistemology for it. You know, you don't, I wouldn't think most people, I guess I'm wrong on that, would want to be tricked again. But apparently there's a lot of people willing to be.
How you
By the
phrase it,
same
though, isn't it?
trick.
Tricked again. People want answers, and when they think they've found them, they're reassured that they're on a path to enlightenment. Well, you can say tricked again. Yeah, unfortunately, having a lie highlighted to you doesn't increase your discernment level necessarily. Is the problem here, right?
Well, it's the same trick, though.
Yeah, but that's right. Sometimes, okay, if you ever watch any scammer YouTube videos about actual scammers, we've been called scammers recently, so it's appropriate for the moment. What scammers will do is they will set up a database specifically to target people who have already fallen victim to a scam. For instance, somebody who falls victim to the advanced charge scam, where you're told you've got a credit card with 10 grand on it, you've just got to send 50 quid for the postage. Okay, people fall victim to this scam. They then get added to the already been scammed database, where people will approach them and say, have you been scammed out of £50 with an advanced fee scam? We can help you. / scam you again. Because people who are falling victim to this scam and go, oh, I've been duped, it doesn't raise their discernment level one iota. And the same can be said for almost anything. When I tell Neil, what you want you will not get, you want a general uplift in the overall discernment level of the populace. You're gonna laugh, aren't you? Right? We're working against the powers that should not be trying to dumb everyone down. And you think you can raise their discernment level by what? Just showing them that they've been duped. What that does is highlight to all the other narcissists around them who the potential victims are. Oh, you got duped. Oh, someone told you that you were duped. Okay. But the guy that doesn't care about the globe, your average Joe businessman who has zero interest in space or the globe. Oh, yeah, we're on a globe, yeah. Meanwhile, business. He's not going to get exposed to the lie and care about it enough to be reinitiated into a different paradigm lie about the nature of the world. Because number one, he held no interest. Number two, his discernment lies elsewhere. Yeah? But the people who happen to have their discernment lying in the conspiracy realm that Flat Earth's been tucked into, all they do when they go, "Oh, I've been duped," is put a little light over their head saying "potential victim." That's all they are to the guys who dupe them again. But you guys, no offense to you, seem shocked when that occurs. No, I'm not in the slightest bit shocked. And if I knew how to raise people's discernment level, then I don't know what I would achieve with that personally. I think people's discernment level being increased, heightened, might increase their skepticism of things, might make them less pliable for the people who are trying to manipulate them. But if you specifically as an audience member aren't specifically trying to manipulate anybody, what benefit does it have to you? And off the back of that, what benefit does it have to me? If I increase my audience's discernment level, from a selfish perspective, how does it assist anybody? It only hinders the people trying to manipulate them. Now, if your ambition is to hinder the people trying to manipulate people, then fair enough. But me, I've turned my back on them. I've got a very different attitude. Oh, they're liars. Well, then I don't want to be anywhere near them. What's that? You're still covering NASA? Why? They're obvious liars.
Well,
just get away from them.
Right. But I'm just saying, as projecting my own, the way I look at things, right? I'm just projecting that out is all I'm doing, and wondering how could you do that again?
What you mean? You mean you are exercising your discernment by way of empathy in respect to someone else's lack thereof, you mean? So you're demonstrating your empathy and discernment all at once and questioning why they have neither. Presumably, not empathy, but, discernment.
Can I get in on this briefly?
You can have to John rounds out his point. Yes. Hello, by the way.
Yeah, I was just, I do care about people. And I was really surprised that it was stated to her so plainly. And the thing she wanted to destroy was the Coriolis effect with her. I was like, what are you doing?
You're trying to stack up the false dichotomy. Go ahead, Brian. Hello,
morning,
Chocolate.
guys.
Oh, hello, Chocolate.
Yeah, for anyone who's after getting involved in this thing, what it started with is the dropping of a water ball. That's the basics of it, right? Even the whole thing where they're in a car, which is not analogous, because that's a lateral thing, where they're moving forward and backwards in a car. That's a lateral thing where the car is attached to the earth. When you're dropping a water bottle and you're expecting a piece of cork that you have in the bottle or a bubble to rise as the bottle falls, right? And it doesn't do it. How can what's the real blind spot? And it is heliocentrism that allows people to do this. Is they jump straight to the most outlandish answer for this, which is that the Earth is rising up, whether it's a constant velocity or accelerating, doesn't make any difference. It's like in heliocentrism, when there's an issue, they jump to the most outlandish thing, and that's the answer. And that's where the problem lies with this, I think, is that instead of just, because what's heliocentrism? There's no discernment when it comes to scientific method. Like, so why is this happening? There's no, like, why, even though it's not, like, you could say it's not even a natural phenomenon. Couldn't you? You could say it's not even natural, dropping a bottle with stuff in it, right? You could say it's not a natural phenomenon because it's not something we observe in nature. So you have something that's an induced effect that you don't understand the cause of, and the only cause you can come up with is the craziest one. It's like, have you not explored every other possibility first? If you want the answer, like the answer I gave to it originally was that the bottle is falling at a rate faster than the cork or the bubble will rise. So if you're dropping the bottle from like 8 feet or 10 feet at the most from a window, right at the top of a council house or whatever, it's only going to go straight down so fast. You're not going to see whatever is in it rise, because water is more dense than air. This bottle of water is going to fall through the air very, very fast in comparison to the rate that the cork will rise up through the water. So you would have to drop and even for that to be a correct answer, you would have to drop the bottle and monitor the bottle from like a 10-story building and see if the cork rises through the water by the time it hits the bottom.
Right, you have to stabilize the fall, and that's extremely difficult.
How are you going to monitor that? How are you going to zoom in on a bottle and see if a piece of cork in it has risen as the bottle falls and to the ground?
Well, the bigger problem is it's not a permanent situation, right? It's not a permanent situation, so it has a start. Thus, whatever's in it is never truly stabilized within the actual motion. So it's brutally difficult to really display the concept.
Well, there's another problem, and it's a pick and choose problem. If I use water and I put a cork in it, or an air bubble in water, right, and I'm dropping the bottle, and I then state relative density didn't take place, right? Well, what about if I put a piece of wood underneath a piece of steel and I drop the bottle? Will the wood rise through the steel? No, because they're solids, so that won't happen. But I could switch them around though, and put the steel at the bottom and the wood at the top, and you get the same result. So I could then say relative density did happen. It's like it has to exclude certain mediums or states of matter. So it's excluding solids, which are also have a density. There's so many problems with it. But the fact that they all get to the Earth must be rising up. It's like, how did you get to that? That's what me.
What does the Slit have to do with it not working?
Yeah, I don't see how the Earth rising up is the final answer.
No, I don't see how it wouldn't. I just see how it's absolutely and permanently unprovable, but I don't see how it mechanically wouldn't pan out. It definitely would.
But it's outrageous. It's
an absolutely. You guys say no, because you always do that every time I do something like this, and then, yeah, you know what happens.
But it's utterly outrageous. It's an outrageous claim in the first instance, let alone a reasonable supposition of cause for a cause and effect relationship they're asserting. It's an outrageous claim. It's not like you go, I wonder what causes that. And then you come up with the most stupid nonsense. Yes, it's unprovable, Alwyn. And yes, it leaves you pondering, Brian, but you're a deep thinker. Me, I just get to the outrageous claim bit and go, what? What? I don't care what you say after that.
I'm all about the thinking. I'm just thinking, I don't see how it doesn't work. I just see how it's utterly ridiculous as a concept, leaves more problems to be solved, like what medium is it moving in, right? It's a screw up. But mechanically, there is no material that's like, this makes sure that it's not that. No, it isn't. Nothing proves that it isn't that.
Let me just address that, because the phenomenon is a density gradient or density gradient axis. Clouds are denser. Clouds are
which density passively divides itself.
Okay, density. No, clouds are more dense than the air around them.
Yeah, but there's also rising air there because of temperature influences, right?
This is the point. Stop.
Is not only.
Stop 1 second. Number one, you're talking over him constantly, Alwyn. And he's too polite to tell you to stop. Number two, this is the point of it, right? As long as you can get into this wrangle dangle, the outrageous claim gets forgotten real quick. Then it's just winner, loser, and then you remember afterwards, oh yeah, he's proving Earth moves up, right? So this is the
No,
point
it
of it, this
doesn't.
wrangle-dangle now.
We should argue
I'd have to disagree with Sean.
about if the model works. We should just focus on how it is
What
absolutely
model?
and permanently
What are you
unprovable.
talking about?
Disagree with clouds are denser than the air around them. You can't. What?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because clouds are water vapor, which are less dense than air. So the thing about water vapor, it's not until it condenses to.
Clouds aren't water vapor.
Clouds aren't water vapor.
Well, they are. They're made of water vapor.
No.
No, they're
Okay,
not.
no, to be called clouds, they're in the process of the phase change. Before that, they're invisible water vapor. You wouldn't see them. They're not clouds. So very specifically, no, they're not clouds. Water vapor isn't clouds.
Yeah, but you're not seeing water vapor. You're not seeing water vapor.
Well, then
What
it's
seeing
not
is-
clouds. Then it isn't. If we're not
you're
seeing water
you're
vapor, it isn't clouds. Then is it?
aerosols and dust and other things. That's where we get to actually visual as clouds.
Yeah, but that's because
not
it's
just
condensing.
water
No.
vapor.
That's because it's condensing around those things before it becomes rain. So yes, in order to become a water droplet, for that to occur in a phase change, it's got to have something to latch onto. So normally, yeah, there might be a bit of dirt in the air that it forms around. So from that perspective, but you're still talking about the transition process. It's not water vapor anymore when it's doing that.
Well, it's condensed water
Condensation
vapor.
requires a surface.
Arwin,
That's how it's.
Arwin.
for 50
Yeah,
hours,
it's
Just gonna,
condensed.
second time in the
It's
last
water.
10 minutes. Arwin's just a bit keen.
Yeah. I'm normally not here. I'm not doing my own show today, so I'm just.
So that means
Okay,
once
just
everyone.
hold on. Everyone else,
Hey,
everyone else,
Oh my
hold on. I
God,
just need to.
Arby can't be part of the conversation.
You
Yes,
can
I hear
be.
it.
Of course you can. You just try not to, just step in at the right moment. You're just a little bit off with your timing, and it's just becoming a bit rumpusy. I'm not moaning at you. It's just your timing's a quarter of a second off. That's all. You'll get back into it for whatever reason. You've not done a show and expelled some energy, so your energy level's slightly higher than normal, and you can tell by your interruption being just that quarter of a second too early, and it's going to start stepping on people to the point of irritation, like Neil normally
Okay,
does.
I'll shut up then.
I'm not saying shut up.
Well, then I'm going to interrupt just that quarter of a second too soon.
Fair enough. We'll have to deal with it by the sounds of things.
Boy,
What
that's
the
showing
hell?
favorites, Jason. That is showing favorites there.
Neil, shut up.
Can I add about clouds? Clouds also have air involved in them. So if you take a ship on water, steel is more dense than the water, but the overall density of a ship, when you add all the air that's inside of it, is actually less dense than the water. Even though, right, so that's how a ship floats. Right, so a
Thank
cloud
you,
is the same.
Archimedes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about.
No, we're not.
So
No, that's my point. No, we are not. We are talking about the nonsensical, outrageous claim that Earth moves up. But here we are talking about how things float and how things are buoyant in water versus how things condense in clouds. Yeah? This discussion is so devoid of any connection to the actual outrageous claim that Earth moves up. It's untrue. And I'll be pointing that out every time we get into this little wrangle-dangle, as I call it.
Well, it would be, but they claim a cause for a phenomenon that we observe in nature, right?
Fantastic. Put it through the causal relationship method known as the scientific method, and you'll be taken seriously by people.
Which obviously
thing. Hold
that
on.
didn't work out. Sorry,
What
Derek, go ahead.
phenomenon? Just like when people say gravity, let's take it through the scientific method. What are you taking through the scientific method again?
You have to
What's
observe
the
a phenomenon.
phenomenon?
Well, you have to rack your
Exactly,
brains
John.
at some point, like to put it into the method. You have to actually observe something occurring. Well, with Anthony, with the exact same phenomena, he observed and could describe in nature how some things go up, some things go down, some things remain neutral, and he can qualify that. Leaf falls from tree, leaf hits water, leaf falls through water. Something detaches from the bottom of a lake, goes to the top of the lake, floats up, deteriorates, gases are released, they go up. In other words, he can show it in all vectors. But at that point, he just needs to describe the vector change, or more importantly, cause the vector change, because that's what's being observed in nature, a vector change, regardless of the directionality of the vector. So that's what he induced in his experiment, his egg-based experiment. Had a validated hypothesis that was legitimate, and then he varied that which he assumed caused the effect. The effect being the vector change, describable as some things in nature go up, some things go down, some things remain neutral, most things remain neutral. And then he induced a vector change by varying that which he supposed would cause the effect, the density of the medium. Well, that's an experiment with an effect that was described as being observed in nature. Now, if you want to qualify it in that way, so long as you are actually causing the effect you're describing and not pretending that something else which you vary is actually Earth moving up. If it's Earth moving up as the claim cause, this is where Arwin's point was most valid, you can't validate that. You're not going to vary and manipulate that which you have an outrageous claim for. The Earth moves up. You can't vary that.
Right, and you can't even get a hint towards that because you would literally have to separate yourself from that reference frame, which is the claim, and that's not going to happen. You're not going to leave Earth to take a hint of whether it is moving in relation to something else or not.
I don't think I'm being fully understood on the phenomenon part.
No, you are, John, because that was my point.
Clouds are more dense than the air around them. That's just a factual statement.
No, I don't. No,
They're in an equilibrium with the entire scenario.
I'm sorry, I really
disagreement.
hate to break up this meteorological discussion, fascinating though it is. Is there a point at the end of this? I mean, whether or not Brian's right or you're right, and I know which side I'm on, I'm just not going to state it. Is there something being proven at the end? Are we proving Earth is the non-required claim of stationary, which doesn't have any inference or need for proof attached?
Well,
Extraordinary.
will you look for a cause for a phenomenon you don't observe?
Exactly. That was my point with the bottle. It's not a natural phenomenon. So the natural phenomenon is not.
Okay, I see where you two are cross-wired now.
Course.
Brian, his point, John's point, is that the assertion that goes along with the induced effect with the bottle is to assert that there is this density disequilibrium as they describe it. He's saying, as you describe it to be your phenomena is false to begin with. That's his point.
Right. But his hypothesis, or if you could even call it that, probably not, is like, why is the density axis, whatever is in that accelerating medium, why is it shifting? Well, it's because it's accelerating. Hello.
Morning.
It's
Yo,
still
yo.
on Twitter, by the way. It's just
Good morning.
It's come up on my icons on my iPad with a little X, and when I went to it and tweeted out something, there was nothing but X logos on everything, and I didn't see any little birdies, so I'm going to call it X.
Okay, it's still got Twitter.
That's what it's called now. It's called X now.
Yeah, but it's still on twitter.com, so
Yeah, sure, but that will get changed in time. I mean, the actual process of sending a message via it, is that now called Xing?
I believe so, yes. I think
I'm
that's
sending
what they're trying to
it
initiate.
feels all very trans because it's still twitter.com.
Right. So
I heard that twitter.com goes to actually x.com, but I haven't tested that out. That's what I heard happens, but I don't know.
It's nice that they invented a platform for twits to communicate.
sure, but it's now going to be called sending an X, right? So I'm going to send an X as opposed to I'm going to send a tweet, correct?
Yep.
No.
Oh, it's just like, I don't like this. Things are changing around me. It's not right.
What? The great Elon has changed Twitter, man. So
Frankly, who cares?
I'm going to call it Twitter then.
Who cares?
I'm scared.
I mean, literally, who cares that it's got a branding adjustment? Does it matter? Does it really matter?
Yes, it's a change, and change sucks always.
Change
bad.
equals bad. Not necessarily. Sometimes the good things in life take a little bit getting used to, like my computer. I'm sure it'll be absolutely wonderful, and in 5 years, I will remember it with the fondest of memories. But there we go. Hopefully this live stream will be a successful one. I'm probably going to extend the live show beyond an hour today, just so you know, so I can do a bit of stress testing. Still at that stage with new components, believe it or not, with a full weekend of stress testing behind me. Anyway, we're going to do some housekeeping, so pay attention. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, it's officially not geometric.
That
Yeah,
is claimed by the same people who claimed it was geometric. So picture that.
Yeah, and those calculations for the geometry or the geometric horizon require a flat plane. So I don't know if they're ever going to get out of that.
They never claimed the geometric horizon.
Oh, I'm going to stress something that D Rose has picked up on, that he's obviously he's fairly good at keeping up with the comment section of the two different channels. So that's Nathan Oakley and this channel, Nathan Oakley 1980. But D Rose has obviously picked up on something that I obviously, as I moderate the comments on my own channels, have also picked up on, which is that there are more than a few people who have started to describe the claims of us being scammers as pure projection. So I'm going to read out Super Chat first and foremost. Thank you, D Rose, for the Super Chat. Excuse me. Although I'm not here live with y'all, I'm here in spirit Super Chat. Crush the FE frauds, take no prisoners. The actual scammers are projecting upon us. Thank you for the Super Chat, D Rose. Really appreciate it.
And true.
And true.
It does seem to be like projection.
Any scientific evidence of gravity before we get onto that topic? Any scientific evidence of gravity, they can move away from housekeeping. We've done a couple, that's good enough.
No, there's no scientific evidence for gravity.
What would be the observed phenomenon?
Oh, sounds familiar, hey? If you're watching and you've just been listening to the pre-show, sound familiar? Without it being an in-joke, we were talking about the upward rising Earth, which has the identical problems and the identical heart of an upward rising Einsteinian notion of gravity. Just so we're all aware, it suffers the exact same problems. No, Arwin, to answer your question, what would be the observed phenomena? There isn't one. Just a sliding of the scale from 0 to 1, so that you are under the misapprehension that there is 1 G-force on you when you do bugger all.
I would disagree. I would say that their phenomenon is anything you observe. Therefore, you could just throw it into a certain affirming the consequent, form a logical fallacy, and there you go.
It's more than that.
Anything I observe.
Anything you observe can be attributed to gravity, but also anything you don't observe as a consequence of a spinning ball belief. Not flying off Earth.
Exactly.
Gravity. Not suffocating in a sky vacuum. Gravity. You know, anything you like that's not happening.
Exactly my point. Yep. Anything you observe, anything. Something happening, something not happening, doesn't matter. It's only happening because of what I say is happening.
Well, wasn't that time?
Not having to descend in an aeroplane towards the drop, the cavity that's opening up 8 inches per mile squared. Gravity.
Oh,
I thought time was the cause of all things.
Oh, that's also gravity. That's gravity.
I was kind of saying, not to bring it back to that, but I was kind of saying before, like, no disrespect to Rachel. She seems like a very nice person, but I didn't understand why she was trying to correlate this density layer being caused by the Earth rising up with Coriolis. I'm confused by that. Like, what? First of all, I
understood that.
What Coriolis?
It's because they don't think consistently, man. We know the answer. Like, it only leads to two things. They're not concerned with committing logical fallacies, and they're not concerned with, the scientific method. That's it.
And she was drowning.
Yeah, that's the two things I said prior to Rachel's visit to Quantum Eraser, as he beckoned her, was exactly that. I was like, the things we need to focus on going forward on the next Ballbusters are understanding fallacies and understanding the scientific method. Those two things will set most of the flat earthers who are currently going astray straight. So, yeah. So the fact that she came and was like, yeah, but what about Coriolis in respect to it being an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy that had been employed when suggesting that if Earth were to be rising up, then we would observe a density gradient differential. We do observe a density gradient differential, therefore Earth is rising up. oh, well, what about Coriolis is the answer when pointing out that that's affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy punted out into the arena by Dell. Well, what's the response to that? Not what's an affirming the consequent, how does it work, how is it constructed, how does it not prove what I think seems reasonable and logical? Why are you now saying that's... No, those weren't the responses. Same goes for, that's not a valid hypothesis for a cause and effect relationship that you're asserting with an outrageous claim attached as the cause. Yeah, you need to understand this. If as an audience, if you want to progress, if you want to up your discernment level, that's what you need for it.
That's why I was confused, like twofold, because I was just like, wait a minute, you're trying to put this so-called observed phenomenon into the scientific method, and obviously that's not working out for you. But then you go into Coriolis, and it's like, wait, first of all, what Coriolis? That the same Earth-based one that we've been debunking for years that there's no proof for? That one? Like, and then what? Does that make Coriolis science? I don't even understand it. I was like, what?
No. I heard
don't
through
get
the shutting down perfectly reasonable by QE that she was saying, no, you know how the ball seems to curve but doesn't. That was what she was trying to get out. So when you say, was she referring to the non-existent, you and your reference frames are ruined, non-effective Coriolis non-drift that's also 15 degrees an hour on a globe? No, she's talking about actual Coriolis effect and the illusion that you have something occurring when it isn't. And she was going to presumably juxtapose that with an upward rising Earth somehow.
I think she was going for the Coriolis effect is not scientifically validatable, and that's fine because you don't need science to prove the Coriolis effect.
No, you can describe the effect and induce it and show it repeatedly, but in terms of whether or not there's anything that's rotating non-inertial turning reference frame inducing a not actual drift in objects moving detached from you rotating on that non-inertial reference frame through the inertial reference frame, when that object travels through the inertial reference frame straight, but you turning beneath it see it seem to curve, well, so what? It's just an effect you're describing. Is it a natural effect? Probably not. Maybe you can show me where that occurs naturally in nature. I mean, we've pondered this a few times. My example, just for reference, is going down a whirlpool. You know, I can't imagine where that might occur in nature, but I've seen it several times at lakes by giant dams, and they open a little pipe, and literally you see a hole to the hell going through the water. It's really bizarre. Well, I've seen that a few times, and if you imagine swirling your way down that, well, that if you had a naturally induced whirlpool for whatever reason, some cavity opened up below a body of water in the earth, and suddenly the water's swirling its way down, and you're part of that rotating non-inertial turning reference frame, and somehow unaware that you are swirling, and you look at a branch coming towards you and go, oh my God, it looks like the tree's coming to attack me, because you're somehow unaware that you're attached to a non-inertial spinning reference frame. Therefore, it looks like the branch is curving its way towards you as you reach out for it. Thank you, branch. You came to life and reached out to me as I was slipping, unbeknownst to me, actually turning down a whirlpool. So yeah, there are certain examples that you could sandwich this into a naturally occurring phenomena and then science it, if so desired. But why would you?
No,
Sorry.
no, I have to disagree there.
Ironically, a tornado would be a good example.
Or
except
tornado.
The tornado wouldn't be caused by the Coriolis effect. It would be the Coriolis effect being in it.
Right, I used to do the same. Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? When she gets picked up in the house, yeah, she's going, oh, right, look at that tree seemingly coming towards the house. Well, no, your house is in a whirlwind. Anyway, yes, Brian, go ahead. You object all the way.
Yeah, I do, because you know that you're rotating. The Coriolis effect is based off you pre-assuming that you are stationary and what you're looking at is rotating. The only natural effect for that exists only within heliocentrism.
Not so fast. Listen back to what I said. You're not going to get one over on me on Coriolis of all the subjects. I said,
you know you're in a whirlpool.
In my example, I said, for the person in the whirlpool who was somehow unaware that they were rotating down a drain. They just thought there was... I did incorporate that fact before you objected. I got that in.
Yeah,
you
but
go
you're not
listen.
going to not be unaware.
I don't know. Some people... Brian. I mean, Brian, gravity. That's how.
imagine that?
Oh, no, that wasn't actually my objection to it. It was the reference frames, since reference frames are a mathematical concept.
Hold on, let me just back Brian now you've said that. If you're on a roundabout and you look down at the floorboards of the roundabout, merry-go-round, whatever it is, and you cup your hands around your vision so that you can only see the floorboards. As you look down at the floorboards with your feet touching them, you and the floorboards are as one, right? You're not moving. The floorboards aren't moving. You're just standing on them, and that's it. That's a non-inertial frame of reference. Because as far as you, your feet, the floorboards, all of it's as one, not moving. Now,
No
in
movement
reality,
relate to one another.
just let me get to the end of the example, Arwin, so that people understand. I thank Paula for this, right? Formerly Level Up. I can't remember what her new name is. Damn. Paula, formerly Bible literalist, formerly Level Up. She likes to change her name a lot. Anyway, it'll have Bible probably in the title somewhere. The point is that she explained why it was non-inertial to me, and up until that point I was really struggling to remember the order when I rattle it off, because I want to be able to bang, 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 rattle off non-inertial and inertial reference frames correctly identified within the example. But I was struggling, because I'm like, it makes no sense. The turning reference frame is, quote, non-inertial, but it's moving. No, from your perspective, looking down at the floorboards, cupping your eyes around it, you're not moving, and neither are the floorboards. It's non-inertial, right? The fact that it is overall turning, it's the idea that you're unaware of that for you to see the effect of a ball tossed over the top of that roundabout seem to curve. Because from your vantage point, you look at it, and as you turn underneath that ball going in a straight line, the ball that is going in a straight line, because you're turning, it looks like it curves. But only if you ignore the fact that it's because you're turning underneath it. Normally, people don't pick up on this effect because their brain is intelligent enough, without even thinking about it, to recognise that no, the ball isn't actually turning at all, you're moving away from it. Like when you travel in a car along the motorway, the hills in the background are not moving, and neither are the parallax effects of the near foreground hills moving at a quicker rate. You understand intuitively, instinctually, that these things are stationary and it's you that's moving. But if you are to mathematically, getting to John's point after backing Brian, to describe that effect of the ball curving when it doesn't, you have to mathematicize the reference frame of a roundabout in this example into a, quote, non-inertial, because you're part of it, turning reference frame to induce the not actual effect of a ball curving when it's actually moving straight. And in so doing, you describe the Coriolis effect. That's what we're doing in case anyone's lost track of what we're describing. It is reasonably complicated.
The Coriolis effect has no
Not
natural
really.
phenomenon. That's the thing. There's no the natural phenomenon was that we look up at the stars and think they're moving, but only because we are. That was the natural phenomenon. But if we're not moving and the stars are moving, then there is no natural phenomenon.
Yeah, the stars are just moving, as we observe them to be apparently doing.
Funny enough, they never made that. As far as I remember, they never claimed the rotation of the stars as Coriolis effect, which is funny enough, right?
No, of course. Of course they don't.
You're going to relinquish one of the two reference frames in your argument, then you can't ascribe it directly to the stars movement at 15 degrees an hour. You can just say we have a Coriolis effect of Earth turning at 15 degrees an hour and don't imply the consequence of the turning stars. But that is directly linked. It's just not overtly stated by our opponents. I don't know if that's true in terms of global rhetoric. Certainly not true in terms of anti-flat Earth.
No, but they never like to address direct Coriolis deviations that should be and are always going to go off, oh, this certain process, like a tornado, is happening as a secondary side effect
right.
of the spin.
Well, think about it.
No.
Right?
Let me just... Arwin's on fire here. Everyone stop rumpusing Arwin. He's making a really good point. Go ahead, Arwin.
That
Well,
was my point.
thanks, Chocolate.
Hold on, Arwin. Go ahead, Chocolate.
No, that's my point. Is that the Globers they never, like, how many times have we asked the Glober, where do we see the Coriolis effect? If it was that simple, wouldn't they just say stars, dumbasses?
Yeah, they would.
How many times have we ever heard that? They've never claimed that.
Sure, and in not claiming it, they ascribe it to other things that are rotating as opposed to the non-inertial turning reference frame they claim Earth is. They ascribe it to something else turning like a hurricane and deny that you would see an effect simultaneously like Dan. Simon Dan said, via a tweet, an X, you and your reference frames are ruined, with an example of a man on a bouncy trampoline being pulled along by a tractor and not drifting away from the trampoline. In other words, look, the two reference frames are as one, there's no deviation. In other words, so Earth turns but the stars don't, because there's only one reference frame. Earth's not turning underneath the stars then, Dan. There's not a deviation at 15 degrees an hour as is claimed to be induced by a turning Earth then, Dan. You're going to relinquish your Coriolis claim then, Dan. You're going to relinquish the second inertial reference frame then, Dan. And so on and so forth, because they don't have a claim because there is no natural phenomena to induce any effect. They just ascribe it to things like hurricanes. Well, unless you're in the bloody hurricane, you're not going to be inducing a Coriolis effect, because to be inducing that effect, you have to be rotating, observing things do crazy shit like drift when they're not.
Right, but also, wouldn't they not address the stars being directly deviating because of Coriolis, because of the Aries failure?
Just covered that. No, because you've got to relinquish one of the reference frames like Dan did. You and your reference frames are ruined, implying there's only one. If you've got a very clear, distinct reference frame of the rotation of the Earth and the stars being stationary but only seeming to drift at 15 degrees an hour, then it would be pegged down as two reference frames really easily. That's why they don't claim it, because you need someone like Dan to be able to say there's only one reference frame. Look, no drift. No star drift at 15 degrees an hour would be our response if they overtly claimed it. That's why they don't.
But
you see, they stopped claiming it. No,
but this was my point. This was my point.
Here, sorry.
This was my point about why Rachie was quick to grab this topic off the shelf. I think that she's been tricked by that. And I think that's why she was reaching when she was grabbing at straws and her argument was falling apart. That's why she reached for Coriolis, because you can convolute it so easily, because you're working with mathematical reference frames in that, where you're taking the observer out and you're replacing it with mathematical concepts.
Correct. Easy to confuse people with the language of maths. Bible U is Paula's new name. Thank you, Paula, for explaining non-inertial turning reference frames to me so I can disseminate it so concisely as I stutter on my way around my descriptions of consistency. How ironic. Anyway, just for the audience's benefit, so we keep this globe-related, the assertions that we've just detailed with a roundabout turning and you on it, looking at the floorboards not moving, non-inertial turning reference frame. You spin on the roundabout. Okay, we're all clear. That's how we're going to have Coriolis described. You on a roundabout turning. Men either side of the roundabout are going to toss a ball back and forth between them. So the ball is always going to be travelling in a straight line over the top of the roundabout you are standing or sitting on, spinning, beneath the ball that's tossed between the two men. As you rotate underneath the ball, from your vantage point on the roundabout, the ball looks like it curves. That's Coriolis effect. Hold on, Brian. Hold on, Brian. Please. That's Coriolis effect. The effect is the not actual drift of the ball. And the rate will be whatever rate you're turning at. So let's pretend for a moment that the roundabout is turning at 15 degrees an hour. Then the rate that the ball will appear to drift from its straight path that it's actually taking is 15 degrees an hour of drift. That's how much drift you see. Translated into the ball paradigm, Earth is the roundabout. Earth is turning underneath an inertial reference frame. For them, the stars would be stationary, not moving. Earth would be the roundabout turning underneath the stationary stars according to the heliocentric globe model, inducing a not actual drift of the stars at the rate that the Earth is claimed to turn at 15 degrees an hour of not actual drift of the stars. Ergo, you should take off from the Earth in a drone, film the stars, and not only should the drone drift away from you at 15 degrees an hour as it films the stars would stop moving and Earth would continue to rotate underneath the drone, stopping this not actual effect they claim, because the stars would stop moving, but the drone would whiz away from you potentially at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator, because Earth would start to rotate underneath it when it left the roundabout that is claimed to be Earth. Like you jumping off the roundabout. When you jump off the roundabout, the ball doesn't look like it's drifting anymore because you're not rotating anymore. Anyway,
Well,
go ahead,
just
Brian.
I have a problem with that.
There's a problem that there's no effect on Earth other than the stars that is claimed to induce it. There's no naturally observed phenomena, but there would be lots of them. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, you know that video where you're watching a ball, you're looking at them from overhead at people on a roundabout throwing a ball to each other. But you, from overhead, it appears that the ball is curving for you. So if you watch that, it's you overhead that's looking at the ball appearing to curve. That's not Coriolis. That's some other thing. Coriolis would have to be you looking up from the roundabout at
Correct.
someone throwing a ball straight across the top of the roundabout and it's appearing to curve.
That's correct.
So I always have a problem with that because that is not Coriolis.
Yeah, throwing
It's
the
another
ball.
convolution.
It is and it isn't. Because the moment you toss the ball, it's essentially left the non-inertial turning reference frame and entered the inertial reference frame, mathematically speaking. So the moment it leaves the hands of the person on the roundabout, it does become confusing because it's left the hands of somebody who is turning. However, Brian's absolutely correct. The effect would be something that's travelling through the inertial reference frame, totally devoid of anything whatsoever on the non-inertial turning platform. So the effect is only capable of being described or induced by you, the observer, turning underneath stuff. Therefore, if Earth has this effect, you would see this effect because you would be, as is claimed, turning underneath stuff. We don't turn underneath anything. That's why people like Simon Dan have to tell us there is no effect to observe, even though the very effect they're claiming is 15 degrees an hour drift as we turn underneath stuff. It just doesn't happen.
I think
Right, but
go after you, John.
I was just going to say, but maybe the trick of it is to get people in that mathematical reference frame, because space is really their bread and butter, right? They want to put you in a place outside of the Earth where you can look back down on the Earth, right? Whether it's turning together or as long as it's turning and you're in space looking at it. Maybe that's the real key to the trick.
That's when they'll tell you things like hurricanes definitely move 100% straight. When you put them in that type of inertial reference frame, yeah, it doesn't work very well for them. But that, I think it's that simple, right? Those 2 points that Nathan was talking about before, it's been my point for years, right? It would just be that simple to claim that, oh yeah, the stars are moving because of Coriolis. Why? Because I get off the Earth and two things should happen. The star should stop moving and the Earth should start. None of those things happen.
100 people watching. Shout out to the Arc Ash, who sends me a super sticker, says keep it up. Thank you very much indeed. Please share the show. Massive warm welcome to all of you who've come, presumably because there's other people who are regulars that have shared the link out. But yeah, warm welcome to you. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Thank you very much. Let's get it to 150 people watching. Go ahead, whoever that was.
But the reason I'm detailing that is because it's the same trick, right? If you can get someone outside of the Earth, whether you're asserting the Earth is rising up or you're asserting it's turning, if you can get them into that space that doesn't exist to look at the Earth, you're halfway there to tricking them.
Yes, John, because technically, Coriolis effect doesn't have a natural phenomenon. It only has an induced thing. You can induce it, but it's not a natural phenomenon. The only natural phenomenon they had was supposedly the star has been stationary, but we think we're rotating. But that's been proven to be false. Because and why they don't talk about that is because they have to convolute everything was how you don't see it in an airplane. Because when airplanes turned up, they found out, hot air balloons, they found out that, hang on, the Earth is not rotating underneath us. So this is why you never hear about the stars, being apparently moving. They have to convolute it all the way because there is no natural phenomenon. The natural phenomenon was heliocentric.
Right. But if you can get someone to, like, if you're trying to prove Narnia and you can get someone to imagine themselves in Narnia, you are halfway there to convincing them that Narnia exists.
Exactly.
But that's why I asked that question, because they've already, according to their narrative, they've already put something outside of Earth, right?
That's where I'm about to go. I'm about to go there. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No.
Nah.
Okay, I want you all to check this out. So over the last few days, I like movies. I'm a big movie fan. Got lots and lots of them on my hard disks. A lot of them space in nature. However, while watching
Total Recall?
Go on, whoever's decided right in the middle of that sentence they need to talk.
I was just trying to predict Total Recall. No? Okay. Continue. Sorry.
Thank you. I needed your permission, Eli. Really good to have you. So the channel that I'm about to promote, it's got a really limited number of subscribers. I don't know if he's part of a bigger outfit or if this is just his way of showing his green screen ability. But I came across him because he'd done a frame-by-frame remake of the Ed 209 scene where he's introduced in RoboCop. But they did it with in RoboCop, right? But they were a really crummy background with the machine that they pull all the wires out made of cardboard, and the gun made of cardboard, and the big boss of the OCP Corporation there with a puppet. He's a stick puppet. So it's really
Dick
cheesy,
Jones.
right? Very, very funny. But I was like, oh, I like this. I'll see what else they've got on the channel. Now, a lot of it was him promoting himself as a VFX artist, but let's just share this link. So this is, I already have. So it's going by in the live stream chat now, but just subscribe to this guy because, number one, I think he's got a good sense of humour. But it's called Ghost Lite is the name of the YouTube channel. So, as I say, there's a link going by to his channel now, and you can check out that RoboCop video if nothing else. I thought it was very funny, and this is something else that I shared with everyone else in the Master B Skype chat. So what we've got on screen now, just so you can see, I'll make it a little bit bigger, is this guy doing VFX shots by changing the orientation a la Kubrick and then doing the motion on office wheelie chairs. So check this out. Isn't that epic? So he's just reorientated the camera by 90 degrees, put a wheelie office chair underneath her, filmed it behind a green screen, and then edited out the office chair.
It's very effective, very practical.
The simplest ones are always the most amusing. Anyway, I just thought you'd all enjoy that. This video
I
is
seen this morning.
had someone put a fire sign on it. I don't know who was watching it this morning, but yeah, somebody liked it from the chat. This is called The Encounter Space VFX, and the YouTube channel is Ghostlight. So I'm going to give him a like because I thought that was brilliant. Anyway, check it out if you want to. Hopefully someone else will put a link to his Divergent Droid has done. Yep, go and check it out. Give him a like. Let him know, as always, although it's very positive in this instance, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Give the guy a like. Hopefully it'll boost him in the algorithm. He's got less subscribers than me. For that kind of work, I'd expect you to have a lot more than under 4,000 subscribers. So hopefully you can all give him some love and subscribe to his channel. Like I say, based on the RoboCop thing, definitely worthy of a subscription. So there we go.
That's crazy because you could still see wires in NASA shit. This is even better than NASA. That's the crazy part, that people get fooled by NASA. It's like it's almost like sometimes they're not even trying.
They do
Kind of
the
like they're just
harnesses.
giggling at you.
Yeah, they use. You need to check out Dilly Gill. DILLY space GILL. That's Dilly Gill YouTube channel, where he breaks down the various reasons, whys, and wherefores of the different techniques that they use. To coin his phraseology, NASA are on the cutting edge of cinematography. Now, when Kubrick needed lenses for Barry Lyndon to film under candlelight, he got them from NASA. Because they are on the cutting edge of cinematography, not Hollywood. Anyway, they underplay their hand, they do things that are very low-key, so that you're not suspicious. In fact, they aim to bore you, as was highlighted once in a Simpsons episode, where Bart and Homer fight over the remote because the batteries have fallen out during launch, and the announcer saying, "On board today we have a mathematician, a statistician, and another mathematician." And they're all going, "No, get the remote, change it," because it's so boring. Anyway, the point is, what they're doing in terms of the high wire is required because they need to show people that they are doing it live. It's a live link-up technique that they use for the most part when they're on trapeze or high wire, whatever you want to call it. Now, they do that from crapo vision, several meters away in front of an audience with a TV screen and a couple of hosts. And they're doing the live link-up questions with the hosts fielding the questions, because of the delay, of course, to crapo vision shot from a second camera that doesn't reveal the ceiling. And then they do post-production on a much better, higher resolution camera image that does include the ceiling, that they cut out and CGI in after the fact and remove any glare from any wires. But from 30 feet away in an audience studio, on a tiny little plasma monitor or LCD monitor, you're not going to notice that they're sat on high wire. Whereas in the post-production, you can make it all look tunnely like they did in their post-production that I just showed you. You can add the ceiling thereafter rather than take away the wheelie chair, this bit. But when you're dangling, talking to a live studio audience, as was shown by Dilly Gill, and then the post-production bit that comes out 2 or 3 days later is a slightly different angle that suddenly includes the ceiling, you just know how the magic trick's being done. But if they're going to be asked to spin around because they're in 0G, they need to be able to do it on the fly if they're doing a live link-up.
I'm not sure why they didn't just hire like all the kung fu actors that do all the wire stuff. Because I mean, I've seen some kung fu wire work from the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. That's better than some of the NASA shit. Maybe they need to get those
I'll
guys
tell you
to
why.
train them.
What do you think is a more important prerequisite for an applicant to go up to space? Or let's put it differently. If you wanted to send an actor to Narnia, which is, wink, wink, absolutely real, isn't it, chocolate? Do you think it would be more important that...
It is.
Of course it is chocolate between you and I right now having this discussion. Would you think our applicant to go to Narnia, which is going to be more important? The ability to withstand some, let's just make any old crap up that occurs in Narnia. The very low oxygen levels, isn't there? There's very low oxygen levels in Narnia. And in order to be able to survive that, like the children did with their very healthy lungs, yeah, we're going to need someone super fit. So therefore, chocolate, which is more important, that the person be super fit or understand, wink, wink, that they're going to Narnia? Which do you think's more important?
I would say if you're going for authenticity, we'll go for both. But in your example, let's make sure we're going to Narnia.
Yeah.
I get you.
All of the astronauts are liars. There's very few people in this field that we can just point out and go, you are a liar. Descended from a liar? Your dad was a liar. Astronaut, you say? Liar. Lied to you, lied to me, lied to the world. Because there is no space, there is no Narnia, and saying that you've been in an area that would violate a natural law, vacuum, of space, would be to say that the gas we are breathing could vacate into that area that these people claim to have been in. They're just liars. We'd all be dead.
And by proxy, there is no heliocentric inertial reference frame for them to claim Coriolis.
Indeed. Good tangent. Well done. For them to be observing us in the way that they mathematicize a second inertial reference frame for you to look down on Earth spinning beneath you is the area of second law of thermodynamics violation, sky vacuum, that we also fondly disseminate when we describe people who claim to have been there as liars. No, you can't have been to a violation of the second law of thermodynamics area of volume that gas is not filling. Gas would be filling it. You claim you can go there, so would gas that's moving at a high velocity into every area of volume it can fill. It's just not filling it, but you're going to it, are you? Liar.
Yeah, that's I was trying to tie those two subjects together. I'm glad you did it for me.
No, you did it beautifully. It wasn't me that tied those two together. You can't be looking back at Earth for it to be a non-inertial turning reference frame with you observing it from the inertial reference frame of space when space is Narnia. Good tie. Love it. 102 people watching. Please share the show.
I still say it would have been more fun if they got Donnie Yen and Jet Li to be astronauts.
I didn't make out a word of that. One more time, Chocolate.
I said I still think it would have been more fun to get like Donnie Yen and Jet Li to be astronauts because they would have pulled off the wire work much better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point that you shouldn't have someone like Tim Peake on a high wire if he's not capable of making sure it's strapped up tight enough so he doesn't slip in the harness when he spins around. Well, that kind of lax attitude to the job would probably be overcome by somebody who was trained in harness work like me, like somebody who went to performing arts school, somebody who was really, really fastidious in doing their job correctly when it came to the harness, because that's what they did. Like when people are getting Neo to fly through the air, right? You don't see any harness slips, do you? Right? But Tim Peake, he's probably not got that quality. He's got the quality that he knows, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We're going to be doing wire work, not going to space. So that's the bit that's important here. You know what I mean?
But that's the part that I find so like ridiculous because look how actors will train to be to for their roles, right? Like certain martial art, like even you, like you said, Neo. Look how Keanu Reeves trains. Look how all these actors, Tom Cruise, they train to do these things.
Yeah.
So that when in production, it comes off looking good.
Yeah, but you know the scene when
with
I know it's
budget
within
like
I know
NASA
you're talking
has,
about between the filming and the actual end result, but in the movie, in the Matrix, when Neo's talking to Morpheus and he's having a fight and he's standing doubled over going and he goes, "You think that's air you're breathing?" Right? Well, it's akin to Tim Peake going, "Bloody hell, it was really difficult today in zero gravity," and the production manager from the sideline going, "Do you think that's zero G? You're in a harness."
No, actually, it actually plays in their favor because if you have professionals doing what we know to be high wire work, or what the public knows to be high wire work, when the astronaut who's not good at it does it, it looks like they're just in zero gravity.
Oh, they're the amateur.
No, they're experiencing something different because look at this guy doing high wire work. That's high wire work. This over here, that's something else. It can't be the same thing.
No, I've looked it up actually. We're all going to look really stupid now. There is actually a justifiable reason for it. Gravity.
But if you're used to seeing like professional stunt people do it, right? And then you have this guy on TV that claims to be in a place that doesn't exist, doing something that's kind of like it, but not quite. You know, it's maybe a little bit easier to let that
I understand. What you're saying is when you know that Neo is God in the Matrix and he is perfectly fluid in his motion, then that is the expected standard of a god within a machine. When he can have he's got full control over the constraints of what he's operating in. You expect it to be fluid. When it's your normal Joe or your normal Tim, it's your normal Tim, and he's just up there, and he happens to jolt around a bit while he's doing his somersault, well, then you can forgive him. Well, that's exactly correct. Again, back to Dilly Gill. They play their hand very close to their chest. They're not getting him to fly up and do some maintenance on the inside of the machine. They're just getting him to do a somersault.
The problem is these people aren't supposed to be normal. They're supposed to be the best of the best, aren't they?
Exactly.
They're the heroes. They're the heroes that kids are looking up to while they're in their khakis and a tin can and a freaking second law of thermodynamics violation moving at 17,500 miles per hour.
I like
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I like
Hold
the
on, but that's
disappointment arc
perfect.
of the story that would be the real story, though. You know, so you said best of the best. So you imagine, right? You've got 20 men and women. They're all lined up against the back of the aircraft hangar with some really snazzy looking equipment in the back. Right, the doors are fully open, the sun's shining through, and then the sergeant or whatever he is with the reflective sunglasses comes out and says, "Men, you women, you've been brought here because you're the best, not just the best, the best
Exactly.
of the best. Some of you are going to go away from here having not succeeded, but some of you are going to go to space." And then at the end of that arc, they've gone through the full montage. You've got the full dun 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 dun. They're going through the full Rocky montage. And at the end of it, they're letting them go one by one. And you end up with Tim Peake at the end of it. Congratulations, son.
Exactly.
Hold on. But see, because of what you just, the best of the best, right? So you got Bruce Lee, he's the best of the best on high wire. He looks like this. Well, when we have the best of the best in space, they don't look like that. You see, I think it's part of the illusion itself.
I don't think. I mean, man, look. As long as the symptom isn't addressed, like all of this stuff is secondary. And people will get tricked whether it's good wire tricks, bad wire tricks, because you know what? This is here to reinforce the fallacious reasoning everyone bought into. It wouldn't even matter if people knew the right questions to ask.
Well, yeah, we know that. That's why we asked the question before we went into it. But the I think that the bad high wire acting actually plays in their favor, because if they were doing it like the professionals do, you know, because they're supposed to be professionals. So there's a disconnect in people's minds between someone doing it on high wire and someone in a place that doesn't exist doing it.
Maybe I'm slightly biased because I've watched martial arts movies all my life. So maybe to me maybe that's why I'm a little bit biased to this, but I don't think so, man. Like it's one of those reasons why I started looking at this, like saying, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. Because it looks like shit. It's not because it looks so dope that
Well, that's how
I
you
can
know
be
it's
fooled.
that's
If
how
it
you
was
know it's
exactly
real chocolate. It looks so fake.
Nah, if it was exactly the same, people would have clued in on it a long time ago. You know how I knew? Like here's the thing that undid the delusion for me. There are no pictures from space. How did I know? Because I only had one reference to work with. So if their wire tricks were exactly the same as the ones in movies, that would have been a higher alarm than it being what it is, which is why it has to suck or has to be different than what we're already used to here on, well, I mean, what we're already used to.
Well, that's why they're leading the way. So when Dilly Gill says that they are at the cutting edge of cinematography, it has to be that way. They have to be ahead of the game when they're showing you a parabolic maneuver. You can't be fully aware of what a parabolic maneuver is and experiencing it there and then because you've got a ticket for one. When they're showing you that as the zero-G effect inside a claim to be space station, for instance, you can't know about how they would use a camera angle difference or eat a dinner in space. You can't know how that cinematography is being done. That has to be filtered down rather than worked its way up. Because as you say, if you were aware of how they managed to create, if Gravity came before the ISS, the movie Gravity came before the ISS, you'd immediately know what was what. But because NASA are going to continually evolve their cinematography techniques ahead of Hollywood, you will always see their current material in the light that outshines the Hollywood fakery that follows it, because they're being led by NASA, not the other way around. It has to be that way. They have to be on the cutting edge of cinematography.
You did make a distinction between the two. How do you know that they're different organizations?
Just by output, by their fruit. In other words, even if you were to say that they are the same entity, that is to say, John's speculating that Hollywood and NASA are one and the same entity. Well, maybe they are, but their output is the same. Is different. In other words, you can say that a Lexus is the same as a Toyota. Well, yeah, they're fundamentally built by the same people in the same factories. It's just a different badge. But we've just given them two different names because they're two different things. And you can categorize them separately, even though, strictly speaking, they aren't. It's just a marketing ploy in the case of Toyota. And in this instance, it might just be a public perception thing when they're actually the same. It doesn't really make any difference. Their outputs are subtly different. NASA are ahead of Hollywood in terms of their abilities with cinematography. And that is borne out when you see someone like Kubrick borrowing NASA equipment because they can't achieve the result NASA can with the lenses that they have in Hollywood's disposal. NASA, on the other hand, can achieve extremely low light level capture with their lenses, so Kubrick borrowed them from NASA for Barry Lyndon.
Right. So the part of NASA downplaying their hands, and the reason that Elon Musk can say it, it's real because it looks so fake, is the way they try to distinguish themselves from Hollywood.
I'm still waiting for the finding of the lost footage of the building of the ISS, because I would think that that'd be something you'd want to capture.
Yeah, you'd
if
think
you
it'd
were
be
able
something
to
that
build a tin can in space while in space.
Right, you'd think it would be something that they'd have endless hordes of telescope salesmen out there trying to convince you to go and watch it being built if there was actually something to be looking at.
Yes. Yep. While it's happening in real time, you know how crazy that would be? That everybody could just go outside and watch. Look what we're achieving. We're building something in space while moving around the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour.
More than
there
that.
definitely
More than
would
that.
have been an
Hold
influx
on.
of sales.
More than that. Remember, if you were old enough when you went to the cinema and saw Superman for the first time, and you saw Superman on the big screen flying out above the globe, and then back down again through the atmosphere and second law of thermodynamics violation, black bit of space. Well, if you were to experience the manufacture of a space station, whatever it may be, to fill the void that light that doesn't comport with the heliocentric orbital motion that we call the ISS, when you're explaining that, if you were to realistically look up and see it, you would be seeing what would be akin to a god, a man flying in the sky. Just flying around, building his machine in the sky. That's what you'd be watching.
Exactly.
Superman.
Well, I'm waiting for them to find the technology that they lost. They used in 1969.
It's with the footage.
That's what I've been point.
It's with the footage, bro.
No, they've got a reasonable explanation for that. Right, I've looked into this. As it happens, back in the 60s and 70s, the film stock that they used to film the moon landings, that was really, really expensive. Do you remember when you had a VCR and you filmed your wedding on it, but the A-team was on while you were out, and what choice did you have? You had to film over the top of your wedding footage. You'd watched it several times. You weren't going to see that A-team episode again. So you put your timer on, you put your film in, and it did just record over that very important wedding video. But what are you going to do? VHS was very similar in technology to the type of tape that they were using back then, and it was really, and I do mean really, expensive, even by NASA standards. So essentially, they just taped over it.
Well,
Yeah,
the
that
footage
checks out.
they taped over, but the technology they lost.
It takes a very long time to build that technology
they
back.
destroyed, according to their words,
It's
destroyed.
a painful process.
Yeah, we lost that technology in the 60s and 70s, and, it's very hard to build it back up. Imagine a wardrobe, right, with very old doors and old hinges that you can go through, and when you work your way past the fur coats in the wardrobe, there's another world called Narnia on the other side of it. Well, now imagine that it's, several years later, that wardrobe is going to have suffered the effects of entropy, the hinges have now fallen off, the portal's now closed, and it's very difficult to get that technology back again.
Yeah, the company that built it isn't in existence anymore.
Indeed. Right, quick public announcement with 100 people watching. This would normally be where the show is rounded out, or there or thereabouts within maybe 5 or 10 minutes. But what I'm going to do, as I'm very low in confidence with my hardware updated computer, as I've spent an entire weekend faffing and fiddling and watching it crash over and over again. Not unexpected with new equipment, so I'm not that stressed, but talking of being stressed, the computer needs to be just to make sure it can actually withstand any sort of work being done while we're live. So up until now, I've pressed no buttons. I've done nothing other than bring chat up on my little Stream Deck box, so we can thank people like Jardo for his super chat. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Jardo. If God has built the ISS, he wouldn't have put all the critical infrastructure on the outside. Right on. Oh, that's just part of the absurdity when they're laughing at you, so they can go outside and repair things that constantly need maintenance. Yeah, in the pool that they claim is outer space. But anyway,
that's
just, let me
almost
just
like a
finish my announcement. I'm
Spaceballs
nearly there. I'm
thing.
nearly there. So what I'm going to do in a moment, when we reach about the hour mark in a few minutes' time, is pretend that we're going to do an outro, announce that we're going to be ending the live show, strictly speaking, but I won't. I'll carry on live, so you can stick around if you want to. All I'll be doing is putting the computer under a bit of stress while it's live, because this is the most demanding thing that this particular computer does. So I'll just make that, or make you aware of that when it happens. But yeah, we've got a few minutes left in the meantime.
I have a video to review, a very good one. If you're interested in doing that,
Oh,
I don't know if you want to do that.
At the 4 minute before the normal outro sort of time, as I'm saying I'm going to be doing other things. Oh yeah, that's just perfect timing.
Okay, fair enough.
What was it? Go on. Is it starting Master B? I don't see it.
I'll get the video for you now. 1 second.
Okay.
It's Sabine Hosselfelder. Remember Sabine? 1 second now, I'll just get it up here.
He's a lovely fella.
Sabine
How could we
Hosselfelder.
forget, dear Sabine?
Where's it going to? Hang on a second now. It's Skype is jumping on me here. Sorry, give me a second to just get the. It's Sabine Hossenfelder for the third time, and she's covering the second law of thermodynamics. And I sent it to Kiwi, and he was like absolutely gobsmacked at the nonsense that she comes out with.
Okay, so this is the video. We're going to put a link to her video, Share the Love, algorithmically speaking, with Sabine, and let her know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me by clicking on the link that will be whizzing by any moment in the chat. Hopefully it'll be spammed by one of my moderators. But check it out. Let her know that we've responded to her video. We will kick off the end of this normally outro with a game playing by doing a video. Excellent. Why not?
What do you do?
What we do.
This isn't just what
real quick,
exhausted parents say, it's a property of nature. Life requires structure. The human body, for example, isn't just a bag of mixed atoms. The atoms are ordered. They're in very specific places, like organs and stuff.
Okay, fair enough. Go on, Chocolate.
I was just curious. Is this a new video? What's the date on this, Brian? I'm just curious.
A month old, I think.
Yeah, so it came out 1 month ago. The video is called I Don't Believe the Second Law of Thermodynamics, full stop, open brackets. The most uplifting video I'll ever make, full stop, close brackets. That's the name of the video by Sabine Hosselfelder, and it's been shared. Go and check it out. Let her know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me.
Look, what do I know? I'm a physicist, not a physician. Physics doesn't tell you much about life, but it tells you that entropy can't decrease. And as entropy increases, order gets destroyed. This is why things break, why we age, and why the universe will eventually become a big disordered.
It's not a why. You're halfway there to ascribing it as a cause. No, it's not why those things occur. It's a description of their occurrence. That's wrong.
I see why she, disagrees with it, because she doesn't even know what it is. Talking about order to chaos kind of situation then.
She also said that physics don't tell us much about life. They tell us a lot about it. I wouldn't say it doesn't. Physics don't tell us much about it. That's kind of what it does.
What is physics? What does physics mean?
Physical.
The physical, right? Doesn't tell us much about the physical.
Mixed particles. At some point, life in the universe will become impossible. That's kind of depressing. But is it right? What does physics...
Hold on. How does describing things moving towards an entropic equilibrium. It doesn't make life harder. It's just describing how we observe things to occur. What that she's just detailed is a speculation based on the logical inference after describing what entropy is. So that's a consequence of a fear, perhaps, you have based on the description of entropy. But it isn't part of entropic descriptions, what she's just given you.
I bet
That's
you
why
she
they
could
like
not.
to call it heat death. They literally call it death.
Well, heat death is part of what is it? Is it In a Brief History of Time? But again, you're talking about a consequence, a speculation about the consequence at the end, where everything will reach entropic equilibrium. Now, there's further speculations about things then going in reverse, the big crunch, all those sorts of crazy notions. But they're all based on the speculation after assessing and describing how things occur always. But that description of how things occur always, in this instance, what's occurring in terms of entropic decay, as she calls it, reasonable. That's what the second law is, just a description of that process, the arrow of time. But she's incorporating her fears in regards to a fairly reasonable logical inference that you could draw about the end when that process reaches its end. But it hasn't. You're just describing what's occurring now with the second law.
We can't hear the video in Discord.
Can't hear the video in Discord.
Right.
Oh, I know why. Let me just sort that out. Can you talk about yourself for a second, just while I change a couple of settings?
Yeah, I was going to address something that was said earlier, and I didn't get a chance to. Was somebody claimed heliocentric orbits? I would like evidence that orbits are a heliocentric concept.
Can I get a check from Discord, please?
All right, you gonna play the video?
No, I want to check the Discord works.
Yes.
You're in Discord, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, just give me 30 more seconds.
Physics really tell us about entropy increase. What's entropy to begin with? And how will everything end?
You hearing that?
Yes.
That's what we'll talk about today.
She's
I
put
like how
science.
entropy is
She's
the new
titled it.
hotness.
Go on, Chocolate. Sorry, I talked over you.
No, it's all good. I was just saying, it seems like that all the big wigs are making videos about entropy all of a sudden. Veritasium, this lady. It's like the new hotness all of a sudden. What's going on?
I think it's directly causal with us. I take full responsibility. It's because of us.
I think it's just a YouTube thing. Somebody somewhere maybe got it from us, but everybody else is just picking up the topic because when you're in the same kind of topic discussion, like looking for content, you sort of just go with the top subject and you put your spin on it for monetization and things like that. Anyway.
Imagine you're driving through the rain. Drops fall onto your window, making little splashes. The street gets wet. You drive through puddles and realize that the wiper on your car really needs replacement. It sounds normal enough, but
I'm in exactly that position. My crappy old car needs new wipers. Please smash the super chat.
why
So
do we
do
never
I.
see what
Yeah, they're all streaky. It's downright dangerous, actually, for me.
to collect on the street to form drops which then fly into the sky and make clouds? Why do parts on your car break on their own but never repair themselves on their own? Physicists call it the
Why is she
arrow of
asking a
time.
why question?
Yeah. I'm glad I preemptively covered this. But yes, exactly. These are just descriptions. All entropy is second law of thermodynamics is just a description of how things occur.
And it's the reason why we get older.
Go on, John.
I was going to say, laws of nature are what is happening, right?
Yeah.
This is
Watson is.
Yeah. So, right. So this is happening. Why is she introducing why or how to that? it seems like she doesn't understand what those words mean, and that's
I can answer that.
horrifying to think.
Right, because you didn't maybe see on screen she had the word science, and then she went into another undertitle of physics. And as she's claiming to be a scientist, this is a pseudo-scientist stealing valor for the non-scientific descriptions of natural laws. So laws of nature aren't science. Let's just get that cleared up straight away so you understand why I'm doing this. So because they are well-established, understood descriptions that are accurate in respect to how things always occur in nature, these are laws of nature. They are not the establishment of a cause and effect relationship for the phenomena, in some instances, described within these laws of nature. They are just the description only of what is occurring. Therefore, they are not science. Now, Sabine, she's not science either. Not her as an individual, her as a phenomena or a phenomenal person. I mean, she isn't performing the method of science, therefore not a scientist, if you will. But she's so used to stealing the valor of science and the scientific method that she, unbeknownst to her, has also mistaken laws of nature as physics, aka science and the scientific method. Physics is the study of the physical and natural world. Under the umbrella of that is all of the sciences, without exception. If they're establishing the cause of a natural phenomena, they are, by definition, physics. Doesn't matter if it's medicine or biology, or it doesn't matter which branch off that. That's science, that's physics, she's not it. And neither are the natural laws. But being your typical pseudoscience pretender clown, not a physicist, not a scientist, she's going to now steal valor from the descriptions of how things occur always and call them science. Because somewhere along that there'll be a swindle for her descriptions in pseudoscience being the same as the, quote, science of the natural laws. So if the science of the natural laws is such that they just describe how things happen and look how accurate these are, then my description of gravity, for example, also sometimes falsely ascribed to being a law of gravity, is also just a description of how things occur always. See the switch? You invent something, call it science, and say how, likewise, a description of something that does genuinely occur always, in this case, the arrow of time or entropy, is just like my description of some bollocks I've invented. Because I say it's a law. Therefore, this is also science. Neither are science in this example with gravity and the second law of thermodynamics. Neither are physics, neither are science. They're just descriptions of things that occur. No establishment of cause has taken place. That's it, I'm done.
Yeah, and also I'd like to remind everybody that Newton didn't see like gravitation as a natural law or even as science. He disclaimed that it was simply a law within his mechanics. So it was more like a mathematical law.
Exactly what it was.
He never meant it to be physics.
Yeah, precisely, Arwin. That is exactly what it was. Anyway, let's carry on.
But never younger. Its origin has remained somewhat of a mystery. According to the equations that we use to describe nature, it's totally possible for people to get younger, or for water drops to fly up into the sky.
Okay. Do you want to show us how that's described within the arrow of time that is the second law of thermodynamics?
See, this is that shit we were talking about before. How like they like to say, "Oh, there's the ever so slightest possibility that entropy could actually decrease, but it won't happen." This is that not we've covered this shit before. This is hilarious.
The equations we've...
This is the symptom. What, bro?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. All right. This is the symptom that I was talking about. As a matter of fact, I was going to jump in and say, yo, we got a video to do. It's a must do because, well, I don't want to, get too far away from the topic right now. But the point is, the reason that flat earthers are going awry is because they have the same logical framework that she does. That's what the problem is.
I agree.
Problem? What problem?
The belief that things are possible when it's been shown to be not possible.
All right, but there's a very, very slim chance. I mean, it's not like the entropic law doesn't describe the possibility of this happening. Ergo, it could happen.
Found
Well, what she said there. Well, I'll go after you.
Sorry, Brian. No, I was going to say, I was trying to think who was saying it. We were covering it. It was Brian Cox when he was describing entropy. He said the same nonsense.
Yes. He went through.
She said.
Correct. Go on,
She said, she said there that the equations we use to describe entropy, was it entropy she said, or describe reality or nature? Yeah, she said they allow us to state that there's no reason why it couldn't go in reverse. But that means your equations are wrong. They have to be. Because it can't go in reverse. That's the whole point.
That makes total sense.
It can only go the way. Yeah.
No. If you think about it, right, you know when you open your petrol tank and it says petrol only, or let's rephrase that slightly. You open your petrol flap and it says no diesel because it's a petrol car, right? Well, it doesn't say anywhere on that flap no electricity. So, I mean, there is a slim chance that you could hook it up to a charger and the car will run after. It doesn't say anywhere that that couldn't happen, does it? On the flap. It doesn't say it can't happen. So there's a slim chance that it will work off electricity, isn't there? Because it doesn't say it can't.
Exactly. Yeah. That would mean that. Yeah. I mean, if that's what your equations are telling you, your equations have to be wrong. Because their equations have to obviously leave a space open for the impossible to happen. Because that's what their whole belief is. It's based on the impossible.
Both forward and backward in time. We say they're time reversible. We can totally write down an equation that makes water fly into the sky. In reality,
you could write down an equation for it. I mean, and the language sometimes for entropy would be mathematics to describe it. Okay, but just because you can write an equation in that language that says that things will completely defy the arrow of time doesn't mean they will happen, just because the description of the arrow of time doesn't say that they won't happen that way.
In reality, though, this doesn't happen. So what?
So why the hell would you speculate that it would just because it says it? Just because it doesn't say it won't?
Gives. The reason is that to explain what goes on in nature, you don't just need an equation that tells you how things change. You also need.
But that's what entropy is. It's in the most simplistic way, entropy describes change over time. That is the most concise description I can give for the second law of thermodynamics. Change over time.
What's called an initial state.
So it's not enough to just assess the change over time. So it's not enough to study entropy then. I see. Okay. But this is a video about how you don't believe in the second law of thermodynamics, but now you're stating how it's not enough to just study change over time. I see.
You need to know what changes. This initial state is the entire configuration of the system at any one moment in time.
No, not of the configured system, of the observed change over time.
For example, the positions and momenta of all particles.
Sorry, no. If they're being described in terms of their entropic distribution, then yes. In terms of your theory in maths of what you will now describe particles as, perhaps no. We'll find out.
You take this initial state and then you calculate what it does. Physics basically comes down to the unforgettable TikTok, I had an initial state and guess what happened next?
No, describing what actually occurs is the second law of thermodynamics when describing what you call decay, the arrow of time, change over time. What it will be applied to would also be ascribable within the second law. It's not just that oversimplified description I gave. There's far more to it than that. When you get into microstates, for example, the distribution of the probability within the microstates is quite complex. But again, just using the mathematical language that we all know and love to give us the description of change over time with a specific example in mind. That is still just a description of something occurring. It's definitely not science. It definitely isn't physics. It doesn't matter how you model something in terms of its start and end point that you postulate, when the second law is just describing how things occur always. Shout out to Vlad on Flat Earth. Greetings from the beach. Oh, he's on the beach. Lucky old you. Greetings from the beach. Have a great day, everyone. Well, you certainly will be. You're on the beach. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Vlad on Flat Earth.
The thing is now that there are a lot of initial states that'll make water drop down from the sky, but very few that'll make it flow back up. To get
It won't. It'll evaporate. You know, that's part of entropy in terms of that as a cycle. It's still going through the process of entropy each time. It's still subject to the same exact natural law in terms of how the gas, the puddle, will heat up, break its bonds, and then dissipate into an availability of volume. That would be the entropy described for gas dispersion, in this case water vapour. Not clouds, Brian.
this done, you'd have to very precisely arrange all the molecules in the ground to spit the water back out, and the molecules in the air to create just the right drift for the drops to fly back up.
That's not what happens. The second law of thermodynamics would be describing the dispersion of the gas into the volume. So you think because it doesn't not describe it turning back into a water droplet and going back up again, that that's a possibility? No, it isn't, because you've got a very concise description of gas dispersion within the second law of thermodynamics. Change over time. The change being how much the gas has dispersed into the availability of volume. We use that to debunk outer space. So the gas, in line with entropic law, disperses into the volume it has available to it. And if the sky was an availability of volume, then the gas, that's water vapour, would disperse into the sky vacuum, leaving us with nothing to drink or breathe. Now, you take that to mean that it doesn't say that it won't turn back into a water droplet and go in reverse. No, but it does describe the entropic effect of dispersion of gas. Water would be one of those gases in this example. But you're telling us how it can turn back into a water droplet. Gotcha, Sabine, you crazy, nonsense, spurting idiot.
What she's stating there would be that a beach ball filled with air might sink in water. That's what she's stating there, because the raindrop comes down through a medium that's not dense enough to give it any resistance, to give it adequate resistance to keep it up there.
That's right.
The raindrop falls through air. So
not enough support, right, Brian?
Sorry?
Not enough structural support.
Well, there's not enough density resistance, let's call it.
Yes.
There's no resistance enough to stop it. So it comes down to reach something that has the resistance. Yeah. But if I blow up a beach ball and I throw it into a swimming pool, she's saying it's possible that sometime that beach ball might go down to the bottom.
Sorry, Brian,
won't.
the second law of thermodynamics does not in any way describe a scenario where the ball isn't prevented from not sinking when it's full of air. Therefore, there's a very slim possibility that a ball filled with air placed on top of water might go down. I mean, it doesn't say it won't, does it?
Yeah, let's just ignore the whole reality
What
thing.
the hell is her
Ignore
point
that.
in all of this? Like, where is she going with this, yo? It's just-
It gets crazier.
It's so incredibly unlikely it never happens. Physicists
So you're saying that a description of something that occurs always includes your nonsense batshit assertion that it not describing something that doesn't ever occur but is extremely unlikely could occur because it doesn't explicitly say that it won't. Okay, we're with you.
quantify this probability with entropy. Entropy is a measure for how
So we're going to be quantifying that probability with a description of things that occur always. Well, no, the description of things that have occurred always and will always occur always, in this case, the gas cycle from water, liquid in form, to gas in form, would be applicable with dispersion and entropy, second law of thermodynamics. But you're saying we're going to take this probability description that you've just invented and pulled out your ass and put that through the description of entropy. No, the description of entropy is just describing how things occur always, as opposed to how it will contrast to your very unlikely, never to be occurring water going back up as bloody water droplets. Okay.
How likely a system is to be in a certain configuration.
No, entropy describes how things occur always.
Suppose you have a box and there's air inside. The air is made of molecules that move around. It's very unlikely that they all sit on the right side of the box.
But if the box was open, they'd all escape. So without the box, no bouncing air molecules. Well, that's the end of outer space, isn't it, Sabine? Someone's rumpusing my very cogent point. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's just we've had a lot of people tell us how it would all go to one side of the box, namely the bottom. That's pretty funny. She just debunked that. Thanks, Sabine.
Yeah, she just debunked outer space. Highly unlikely it would all go to one side of the box. So we need a box to contain the gas, unlikely for it to coalesce in one part of the box. Okay, so what if there was no box? You're saying it would all spread out, like entropy describes. Dispersion, like I've just described. Not the lack of probability for raindrops forming back into rain and going back up to the clouds as a drop rather than as a gas dispersing, like entropy describes. But we'll see where she's going to go with this, because it's going to be stacked up against the non-probability of things that never occur.
Well, 1 second. It's what she said that gives the game away. She said, it's highly unlikely. No, it's impossible.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. So it's highly unlikely that the gas particles would all coalesce in one side of the box, but entropy doesn't explicitly say that it won't when it describes it spreading out. So therefore it might.
If that was so, the entropy would be small. It's very likely that there are almost evenly distributed in the box. The entropy in this case would be large.
So entropy is describing how it spreads out from a high entropic state to a low entropic state, correct?
So what's going to happen if you put air in only one side of a box? Well,
you can't. You can introduce a gas to a container and it'll just spread out.
It's going to spread out because that's the likely thing to happen.
That's the end of outer space. So Sabine Hosselenfelder has just debunked outer space by demonstrating that if you introduce gas to an availability of volume, then the gas will spread out all over the availability of volume that the gas has presented to it. Now let's imagine that this area here, just for my example, is 25 billion light years across. So from here to here is the biggest space you can possibly imagine. Now let's imagine that right in the middle of it is a tiny little teeny weeny dot called Earth. Okay, we all clear what my example's going to be. This is space, the white bit, and this is what gas would do around an Earth in a sky vacuum.
Case would be large.
It would be introduced from whatever the source of the gas is, and then it would spread out throughout the entirety of the volume the gas has available to it to fill. So the gas, if where my mouse pointer is currently pointing, that was claimed to be around Earth without containment, it would just do this. Bounce around throughout the entirety of the volume of space. It wouldn't stick around the dot in front of my mouse pointer, because that's not what gas does. Ergo, outer space, the sky vacuum where the liars that are called astronauts claim to go, is bunk. Gas would fill the space.
Is going to remain approximately even. And luckily so.
Go on, Brian.
Sorry, I came in the middle, but I thought you had just finished your point.
That's okay, go ahead.
She likes to use words, it's highly unlikely or likely, instead of the words impossible and not possible. She said it's likely if I introduce gas into one side of the box, it will fill the whole box. No, it's not likely. That is what it will only do. Not possible for it to not do it.
Yeah.
You would have to completely change the behavior of gas.
Right. The description of entropy describes what occurs always, and entropy is describing how that gas fills the space, because it's describing what always occurs. So it's not saying, here's my description of how we see things always occurring. It's highly likely that will happen. No. It's just a description of how things occur. But she's giving it in probability. No, it doesn't offer probability. Just describes how it occurs. In this instance, gas filling space.
You see, she has to leave the door open for heliocentrism. That's why she needs to use terms like likely and unlikely. It doesn't, likely and unlikely is not possible or impossible. It's likely or unlikely, because heliocentrism must come back, because that's what she believes.
Because it would be inconvenient if you entered a room and all the air went into a corner.
Yeah, not only inconvenient, it would be devastating if the sky was a vacuum, because all of the gas would spread out throughout the availability of volume into the 10 to the minus 17 claimed to be sky vacuum that you say space is. Well, no, gas would fill the space. It would distribute evenly.
We call such an approximately even distribution an equilibrium. It's not that the air molecules stopped moving when they're in equilibrium, they're still zipping around, but on the average, the distribution stays the same for a very long time. Physicists talk about entropy not just to confuse people on YouTube.
Sorry, no. Physicists, people who are dealing with physics, would be establishing cause and effect relationships for natural phenomena they observed in the physical world that they experience, and hopefully coming up with the answers for what caused those natural phenomena. That's what physicists do. That's under the branch of science. This, on the other hand, this would be a description of things that occur always. These are natural laws. So when you say physics, physicists don't use the natural laws to confuse people. No, that would be counterintuitive, because they're descriptions to help you understand how and what is occurring when you describe what is occurring. Just the description of what is occurring. That's it.
Here comes the convolution, right?
But
Because what she just said wasn't confusing to anybody. She just described reality. With gas molecules in a box, it's gonna fill the box, right? But here comes the convolution, where now that's going to change depending on what she's going to be talking about, which is, I'm sure, heliocentric nonsense, where it doesn't do that. So here it comes.
It has practical purposes. If you have a system with small entropy, you can do work with it. In physics, work means useful energy. You can do something with it. For example, when the air is on one side of the box, you can put a divider.
Okay, so when the air is on one side of the box, no, if the air would have immediately dispersed into the availability of volume. Now, if you're suggesting that you've got a valve with a pipe and then you introduce a gas, the moment the valve's opened, the gas immediately fills the availability of volume.
In the middle, and the air pressure will move it.
No, you wouldn't be able to do that in that order. You'd have to introduce the barrier before you introduce the first gas. This seems like nonsense, where you can start with something highly unlikely and then introduce a barrier to stop it going into the other side of the box. This is all nonsense.
You could convert this motion to electric energy and then do something else with it. Charge your phone, power a light, drill a hole into the wall and ruin your neighbor's podcast recording. Every time you create structure, you do it by drawing on a reservoir of low entropy. When a system has reached equilibrium and the average remains the same, there's still energy in it, because the molecules are still moving around.
Where's she going with this? What's the point of all this?
But it's not useful.
She's describing these things as is. But her title is, I don't believe the second law of thermodynamics. But yet when it comes to the actual descriptions contained within the second law of thermodynamics, she's describing them as is, as what they are, the descriptions of how things always occur. So if you've got a problem with it or you don't believe it, why are you referring to it in the context of it being how it is, when that's precisely what the laws of nature do, describe things as they are?
Energy.
Well,
You can't do...
Go on, Arwin.
Maybe the title was a hookup. It was like a false advertisement, like to get in, like, oh, you don't believe entropy? Well, here it is. And now she's describing it.
Oh, maybe.
work
Give it
anymore.
time.
Come on, Brian.
Saying give it time, things get crazier.
Oh, I see. You're just saying don't judge it yet.
Physicists call this useless energy heat. Formally, entropy measures the number of microstates per macrostate. A microstate is the exact definition of the state of the system. For the molecules in the box, that could be the positions and momenta of each of the particles. A macrostate, on the other hand, is a state that we as macroscopic objects are interested in. For our box, that could be how many molecules are on the left and how many are on the right side.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree so far with the description. Anybody have any issue with it so far? Because so far, like I say, she seems to be sitting in line with mere descriptions of the second law, which are reasonable.
Of the box. A macrostate is an average over many microstates. If you want to know the entropy, you then ask how many possible ways there are for the air molecules to zip around so that there are approximately the same number on each side.
The number of available microstates. Yeah, perfectly reasonable.
Answer is, there are a lot of those, so that
We need to know the number of available microstates. There's a lot. Oh, I mean, you're concise.
it's likely and the
Yeah, but
entropy
you see what she didn't say.
What?
It depends on the size of the container.
Right,
That depends on how many microstates there are.
right, your V.
is large. If they're all on one side, there are far fewer ways to get this done, so that's unlikely and the entropy is small. Technically, the entropy is the logarithm of the number of microstates multiplied by a constant called Boltzmann's constant. If you remember one thing about the logarithm, it's probably that the logarithm of 1 is 0. This means the entropy is 0 if and only if there is exactly one microstate for your macrostate.
You can't actually achieve that. I mean, that may be the case in the maths. You can't reach a zero state, entropically speaking. There's no describable heat death. There's no describable end to that process of entropy. Equally, we can't know the beginning either.
Okay, so why does entropy increase? Entropy increases.
Bloody good question. I'm going to pause at this point. That is the most pertinent question she's asked on this video so far. We're 6.5 minutes in. What is the cause of entropy? Good question. I wonder where she goes.
Increases because that's the likely thing to happen.
No, not because of likelihood, not statistical. It's a description of what actually occurs in nature. Always. So no, it's not a statistical likelihood. Now she's going to go to a maths. Immediate fail.
And that removes part of the mystery about the arrow of time, because it
Doesn't remove any of the mystery, it describes it. The arrow of time itself, the entropic distribution of gas in this example, is just the description of the entropic distribution of the gas that we observed. It doesn't unravel anything in regards to speculation, logical it may be an inference for the future, or speculation, logical it may be an inference for the past. It just describes what occurs in front of you. That's it.
explains why we observe some things and not others, even though the laws of nature work both forwards and backwards in time. Because
No, the arrow of time moves in one direction.
one way is more likely than the other.
There you go,
She meant
Brian.
to say her equations.
Likelihood equations may go the opposite direction of the entropic arrow of time, which only moves in one direction, but it's just unlikely to move in the other direction that we never see ever. But it explicitly doesn't say it won't, so we've got a small
we wrote
likelihood
down
that
the
it will.
equation. But we wrote down the equation, so therefore, there's a likeliness.
An egg that falls to the ground breaks. It doesn't jump up and unbreaks. All right, we sorted it out. But this brings up another question. If low entropy states like eggs are
Sorry, that was the end of the statement. Hold on. So it doesn't do that. Okay. Therefore, arrow of time in one direction, Sabine. It doesn't unbreaks. Okay? Yeah? Correct? Yeah, arrow of time in one direction. You drop the egg, it smashes, that's it. Yeah, you can physically give it a lower entropic state, by putting your energy and time into the egg, gluing it back together. Yeah, that, strictly speaking, would lower its entropic state by way of your influence. But that isn't naturally occurring. Naturally, after you drop the egg, it's never going to unbreaks. It's just going to decay further, in line with the arrow of time moving in one direction.
Are unlikely.
No, it's not unlikely. It won't happen, arrow of time, one direction.
Why do we have them to begin with? Why isn't the universe in equilibrium already when that...
But who cares when you're not describing the end, you're describing what occurs now. But your speculation about it might link into how it'll go backwards.
That's most likely.
Oh, it's how likely it is with the speculation, logical or otherwise, about the future that the entropic law doesn't describe. I see.
We don't know. We do know that...
So why the bloody hell are you asking about it? So when I'm taking the mickey out of you speculating about this crap that you have no idea about, you're going to disclaim that you don't know. Why even bother mentioning it then? What you have done is described how you drop an egg and that's it. Entropy has increased.
The universe must have started in a state of low entropy.
Must it? I mean, you can infer that, but all we can describe is what occurs always in our physical realm as we experience it now. But you're going to, what, infer that you've got a beginning? Yeah, that'll lead you to the ontological primitives. That's all that'll do. There is a God. Because you're not going to have your nature creating this process, because that would violate the first law of thermodynamics.
A very unlikely state, but we have no idea why.
So again, why are you speculating? Given that you would say the Big Bang created it all, nature poofed itself into existence. But you've got no idea based on the entropic law? No, you're damn right you don't.
It's often called the past hypothesis.
Hypothesis would be the establishment of a cause and effect relationship by way of a physicist seeing something occur in nature. So if you're going to speculate that this is a hypothesis, then it would be the hypothesis for why things reach an entropic decay, as you call it. That would be the arrow of time. Why the arrow of time would be what you would slot into this, quote, hypothesis, because it would be a cause and effect relationship. We've definitely got an effect we can observe, describe occurring always, but the cause thereof has not been established. This is mere speculation.
Term introduced by the philosopher David Olber.
I see, so philosophy and speculation as opposed to science and physics.
It just posits that this is what it was.
Posits? Yeah, in science you can posit what you suppose caused the effect. Then you vary it and see if it does or not. That's science though, love.
But it doesn't explain why.
No, you're damn right. Science would.
The entropy of our universe.
Jeranism, are you listening? This is a high-level claim to be scientist who we can take apart based on our lack of scientific acumen. Maybe if you are watching this, because I am hoping to appeal to Jaren's better nature in regards to his total ignorance of science and explain how science proves things, when this lady utilises the valour of science by suggesting that there is a, quote, hypothesis, it's because in the scientific method, the hypothesis establishes what you suppose will cause the effect you're studying in nature, so that you can go forth and vary that which you suppose causes the effect you observed in nature and see if it does or not. That's called an experiment. Now, she hasn't got that. Certainly hasn't got it for entropy, that's for damn sure. But she can speculate with her odds and her statistics about what could be biological inference and then call it a hypothesis, after disclaiming it came from a philosopher. Now, don't get on me in the comments about how science and the scientific method was disseminated originally by philosophers. It's irrelevant. The method itself is empirical, regardless of who came up with it, in this case, philosophers. But the method that she's saying she's got when she says hypothesis, she hasn't. She's only saying it because in the mind's eye of the public who hear it, it sounds like she's got something with empiricism attached to it. Now, back to the method that's been used for the descriptions of the laws of nature. There isn't any. There's no scientific method adherence when you describe something. You're just describing it. Now, while any village idiot can just describe something they see, there's a lot more nuance to the descriptions in the laws of nature, especially when it comes to things like gas dispersion, debunking your outer space fantasy. Meanwhile, she's juxtaposing this with odds and statistics so that she can incorporate things that will not happen based on the description within the law to have a probability of happening. Hey, Kiwi. Good to have you.
It's kind of pointless to consider any possibility when that possibility is always going to be zero.
Yeah,
Right?
Arrow.
This is likelihood. Is that who we're on right now?
Yes.
Why is Lake Erie in the corner of Pennsylvania and not on my back? Well,
Hold
because it's
on.
more
That's
likely.
not fair. There's nothing in the laws that we'd use to describe our reality to say it won't be on your back, so there's a very slim possibility that it will be. Have you checked today?
What a clown she is. I told Brian when he gave me this video, I gave him a list of what should happen. Brian, do you have that list?
It's coming up. Oh,
Okay.
no, I'll open it up and I'll read it out. I was going to read it out later, actually.
All right.
Yeah,
Carry
you're
on.
very specific.
Is the timing wrong,
Very
Brian?
specific.
Do you want us to wait, Brian? Is the timing not quite right?
No, wait. This is the time.
Okay,
Here we
go
go.
ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. From QE, she needs to be 1, forcefully restrained. 2, straitjacketed. 3, rubber round. 4, administered horse and elephant tranquilizers without cessation. 5, 24-hour sword drawn guard. 6, forced lobotomized in perpetuity.
Now, if there were stars on a couple of those points, you had to go to the legend. The 24-hour sword drawn guard and the tranquilization without cessation was in perpetuity.
Yeah, I don't understand what the stars mean. I'm sorry.
Good. She's a clown, man.
Right, have we figured out what these asterisks are for or not?
That's what I said what they were for.
Oh, okay. Well, should we move on?
The legend was down below. It said, these in perpetuity. The ones that were starred. You want me to tell you what you want me to tell you again?
Yes, but contextualize it for each one.
No. The starred one in perpetuity, the other criterion didn't have to be in perpetuity. It could be a one-time event. But the in perpetuity would be the sword drawn guard and the elephant and horse tranquilization.
Just one question. What's perpetuity?
Dude, come on, man.
I'm just joking.
woke up. Give me a break.
Let's move on.
Has been increasing ever since the Big Bang because that's what's likely to
Oh, whoa. Did she just beg the question of a first law of thermodynamics violation?
Yes.
happen. But this is the total entropy. In some parts of the universe, entropy can and does remain small for a very long time.
There's you. What, based on what? Your observation of some lights in the sky through a telescope? No, you'll be extrapolating that information out.
Because it doesn't have to be evenly distributed. Indeed, we can
No, it'll be following the arrow of time as described by the second law of thermodynamics.
shovel around entropy ourselves. If you have a reservoir of low entropy, you can use that to lower the entropy elsewhere. And luckily, we have a big low entropy reservoir nearby, though it's more commonly called the sun. The sun.
Hold on a second. So you're going to ascribe a heliocentric sun into the laws of entropy. See, that's fascinating, because I remember QE pointing out to me how part of the description of your heliocentric sun has a second law of thermodynamics violation built within it. Notwithstanding the fact that the whole notion of a gas ball burning in a sky vacuum is within itself a second law of thermodynamics violation, gas-filled space, and it's claimed to be a burning ball of gas in a vacuum, not dispersing. But beyond that, once we've got your gravity-induced nonsense of a sun burning as a ball of gas in the sky vacuum, according to your descriptions, when you back away from the sun, the heat output that is experienced by you, the person backing away from it, increases as you back away from the sun. Akin to, and this is QE's example, you standing quite close to a bonfire, 10 feet away, and a bit of wind picks up and you go, whoa, feel the heat off that. I'm going to step back. So you step back 10 paces further away from the bonfire and then spontaneously combust.
Yeah, you see this way she's trying to add in a low, basically called the sun, something of low entropy. What she's stating there is it's not, her gas giant is not, because that's what it is, it's plasma. It's not expanding out into the available volume.
Yeah, exactly. It should be following entropic law. If it's low entropy, all it wants to do in terms of the entropic description is move to a high entropic state. That would be to say that if it's a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum, it just wants to burst out and fill that availability of space. Now, the other week we were describing, I can't remember if it was neutron stars or white dwarfs or whatever it was we were discussing. And the idea that once something has gone through the fission or fusion process to create all the heavy metals at the heart of the burning ball of gas that is a star, in this case the sun, it will eventually reach a point where it runs out of materials to fuse into, creating heavier and heavier elements as it does so. But at the end of that process, it then explodes, supernova, into an entropic line that sits in line with the law of entropy. That is to say that suddenly the burning ball of gas that was violating the second law of thermodynamics violation as it fuses together to create heavier and heavier elements is now following entropic law and exploding out into the known universe to deposit all of those elements into the rest of the worlds around us so that they can eventually form parts of our structures and become us. Hence our rocks are cousins, from Michelle Thaler. The reason she says that is because those rocks, quote, heavier elements, have been created in the hearts of dying stars, and when they go supernova, suddenly they decide that, oh, yeah, we're going to follow entropic law now. We're going to disperse. What? Dispersion, like second law of thermodynamics dispersion. Yeah. But only now we've formed all the heavier elements during our period of life that we violated that law. Now that we've come to the end of our life violating that law, we're going to follow that law to deposit all of this material into the galaxy, of course.
Oh, Nathan, but I'll keep it short, but I have an answer to that from a heliocentric perspective, how I learned it. And that is that normally when the sun isn't supernova yet, the gravity of it basically keeps the explosion in. But then when it becomes too much, then there's a split off. There's basically the explosion is the outer layer of the sun, while the inner layer implodes into potentially a black hole, right? It's the energy is so massive that entropy overcomes the gravity for a moment. That's why that happens.
Well, do you know what the actual official claim is concerning the sun? Because I've been looking into it, and I have looked into it. Is that the sun, right? Because it's a plasma, right? According to them, right? It creates its own toroidal field. That's what they have to claim to stop the plasma from, expanding out into their universe. Now, how does plasma create its own toroidal field? It's affected. It can be affected by electromagnetism, but how can it create its own one? There's no example.
The
No.
explosion energy.
See, Brian, that's
so
laziness. Laziness. Didn't even do a Google search, did you? I did. And the answer is obvious. Gravity.
I said that. I literally said that, right?
Yeah,
What's
so you can use Google
electromagnetism?
too. Me too.
I didn't use Google. I learned it
Oh, you
when I was
knew, smarty pants. You already knew it was gravity, even though it's the answer to every question on today's show.
young.
To answer Kiwi's question, it's electric magnetism.
Yeah, what's electromagnetism? Anyone?
It's the force that comes from counter space.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Because it's more likely to come from counter space and not Lake Erie
There's
on my
nothing.
back.
There's nothing in the laws of thermodynamics that say that it couldn't. So while it may be unlikely, there's a slim
No, no, no.
chance.
Now, the fusion, right? The fusion reaction that's supposedly taking place, causing the explosion, is being countered by gravity, keeping it in. But fusion also, it will create electrical energy just from the sheer energy of it, which will abide by any necessities of some kind of electrical influence.
Okay, there may have to be a part two to this because we're only halfway through a video. A good call though, Brian, even though it was right at the end when I was just about to round out. Sneaky sod. But in the meantime,
But you
we
said
may
they're
do a
not
part
rounding
two on Sabine Hosselenfelder. But at this point, I'm going to start stressing the PC. We've done a good solid almost 2 hours of live streaming, but I do, in all sincerity, want to stress the computer so that I can be confident that I can do things while we're doing the live show beyond just playing a video. So yeah, pretend. Now I'll do a proper outro. So with that, I'll say stay tuned, even if you're watching live or on an after show or whatever. But yeah, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panel for making today's actual live show possible, even though we are going to stay live and I'll be stressing the computer while we do so, and you get to experience what would typically be an after show. So I'm going to invite one of the mods to move all of the guests into the after show so that if we do have a disaster, I've already thanked you for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, joining as a member, gifting memberships and all that good stuff. There's been a few people over the last few days who've hit me up on PayPal, so a little bit more PayPal than I normally get, which I'm very, very grateful for. Instant money for me. Thank you very much to you know you are. I should have sent you all a message. I'm pretty sure I have. So thank you to you as well. When times are tough, PayPals are very much appreciated. So there we go. Thank you to all of you. But we will continue live, and if there is a disaster, at least there's been a semi-official ending to the live stream. But stick around. There'll be a conversation. Eventually, this live stream will obviously end, and we will transition to official after show. But for the time being, hopefully you can just hear the guys chatting amongst themselves. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned because you're watching live. Da-da-dun, 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 da-da-dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Do you
Why
think
did
if you asked,
Why did you close out now and not 3 minutes ago? Was it more likely that you would close out now?
Strictly speaking, that it didn't. There's nothing in the laws of nature that say that I couldn't have or didn't round out 4.5 minutes ago. So strictly speaking, there is still a possibility that time will go backwards, and I will have rounded out 4.5 minutes ago. Dun dun dun.
well, guys, just so you know, entropy only applies when it overcomes gravity. I think that's what Sabine was trying to say, as dumb as that sounds.
Pretty sure it applies whenever it's required to be applied. I mean, if you've got a problem and no one else can help, somebody somewhere knows that you can call gravity.
The G team.
The G team. I was thinking how to segue into that. You know, you can call the G team. Yeah, but men will turn up with like feather dusters and vibrators if you call the G team. I just looked it up. Disgusting. Anyway, that's Brian's filthy mind.
Yeah, because that's what I thought. That's not where you're going with your sarcasm. The G team.
Yeah, well, that was where I was going for the A team, right? If you've got a problem, no one else can help.
Yeah, if you've got a problem, yeah, there's someone you can call.
Maybe you can hire the G team. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. That's gravity. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, because that's what they need all the time. And this is what I won't tell you any more about the rest of it. QE knows the rest of it. So we leave that be live. We leave that call live to review the rest.
The rumpus as Murdoch, soundly as B.A. Baracus. Bite the flat earth's face.
I like the way you made Rumpus Murdoch because he's crazy.
Right.
Babylon. Who would be Hannibal?
I didn't think he would be the leader. Because then you've got to. I would have to have named the leader, wouldn't I? I deliberately didn't, but you've brought it up immediately, of course. I don't know.
Maybe Blue Marble Science.
Excuse me. The leader? Blue Marble? You having me on? You've got to pick somebody who's got like every aspect, like wit, charm, intelligence. He was the most famous person on that show. You know that, right?
As an actor?
Yeah.
George Pepper.
Yeah, he was more famous than Mr. T at the time.
At the time, yeah, at the time. Afterwards, I would say it was Mr. T. But,
oh, Mr. T was miles more famous thereafter, you know.
Yeah. So who would be the leader of the G team?
Oh, I don't know. Who would be respected? Or
it would have been George Netchuk.
You think so?
I would say so. He's older and all that, but he's not around now.
I don't know. George Netchuk. Anybody agree? George Netchuk would be the leader of the G team.
No, not really. He doesn't always have a plan.
Who would have been face? I would have given that to Ruhif.
I gave that to Fight the Flat Earth.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, this is fun, isn't it? Who would your favourite A-Team character be if they were a Glober?
Who's
G-Team.
What was that? You never watched the ad?
Is a Kumu virus BA?
That's racist.
That'd make
Yeah,
you
but we
the
do have
equivalent
to.
of Colonel Decker, Nathan.
Yes.
He's a pretty big black dude, though.
Who? Mr. T?
Why don't you walk me through this?
Why do you want me
No,
through
Akumu
this?
virus. Akumu virus
Yeah,
is a
he
pretty
has to
impressive
be
dude,
Mr. T.
actually, when you see his picture.
He'd be Mr. A because he's a Kumavirus.
Right.
I take it we got done with Sabine. I had to step away.
Well, it's likely we did, but it's also unlikely.
It's never going to end, is it?
Nope.
Who's going to be Murdoch?
Oh, that's already Rumpus.
Rumpus.
Sorry.
Who's reducing my noise?
Could be the G Plus Hangout. I have set it to do that.
Am I too loud?
No, it's just auto leveling you with everyone else. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Do you mean in general or just right now?
Well, that's not what he meant. But yeah.
And why to do it right now? Was it more likely right now?
There's nothing to say it wouldn't be right now.
According to the equation, yeah.
She's scary.
Dave would be this face.
She's scary stupid, isn't she?
Who's Sabine?
Yeah, she's a crazy one.
When I pull that any video from Hassenpfeffer up, it's I have to force myself to do it because I can't look at her. I got to do something else and listen.
Yeah, she's idiots.
A lot of the ballers are very attracted to her.
Oh yes, they are.
What?
Yeah, they are. No, I'm not attacking the lady on how she looks. I don't attack anyone on anything like that. It's not right. But she's not someone I would be attracted to.
Who
Now,
cares?
when he means,
Why are we
when
even
he says
talking about
attract-
this?
When he
Look,
says
she's-
attracted to her,
She's a lovely
who's
fella.
talking over me? Who the hell is talking over me? Is that you, Nathan?
The owner of the show.
Outrageous.
Wasn't me.
Well, I think what Brian's trying to say is because I hear a lot of ballers, some of her sayings. I do. So they are listening to her.
Bullshit attracts
guys.
bullshit. What can I tell you?
If you look in her comments on that video, there's fellas there saying that's the best description of entropy or explanation. I think some of them said explanation actually, which is completely wrong. Of entropy I've ever heard. You know, I understand it so much more now. That's what they're saying.
I think Bob, the science guy, should be John Hannibal. He
Just
always
can't
has a
let this go. Just can't let this go, can you?
Nope.
Yeah, I agree, Arwen. Bob would be perfect. I knew there was someone. Bob would be perfect.
Yeah, he always has a plan. A really stupid plan, but he at least has a plan.
I guess that's what counts in the end, huh?
Uh-huh. Fallacy is better than nothing.
Where's Chocolate Ben? Have you been brought up to speed on the goings on?
Or the last, what I caught, what goings on are we talking about in particular?
We're talking about the treasonous, treacherous traitor, Hanoi Geraint.
Oh, yeah. I know about
Oh,
that.
okay.
I was here for that.
You were here for that. Wait a second.
Well, no,
You
not,
weren't at
not the QE live special that you did, but the original show for that, yeah.
What's your take?
People, sorry.
Are you serious? You already know my take, man.
Does he? Okay, well, that's the end of that conversation.
I've been letting everyone.
Well, I mean, thank God for the world that, Mr. the great disseminator of all things scamish is here to elucidate the world of our existence. Apparently that's his role, is to tell the world that we're scammers. Yeah. That's a hell of a goal, buddy.
And projection.
That checks out.
Well, I told everyone on 24/7 that's been using the celestial navigation arguments, which are many. I told them they were all scammers.
Yep. Just got to eat it.
They weren't very happy about that. I'll just say that.
Oh, you should direct them to Mr. Arbiter of all things scamish. That's what I'm calling him now.
He had an off day yesterday on Glowbusters. I listened to Glowbusters and Jaron wasn't there. He had the day off. So I read into the comments or into the live chat, people were asking where is Jaron, and supposedly once a month he takes a Sunday off or something like that, right? Now I also saw in the start of the live chat, there was a bit of that Nathan is bad. Evil Nathan, right? Now no one mentioned QE, evil Nathan. And then people saying that Nathan would have a lot more following if he just was a bit of a nicer guy kind of stuff. This is what was going on.
Hey, Brian,
they had nothing. Go on.
Brian, if you had to go down on McToon, you'd need a day off to wash your mouth out too.
Wow. But hey, if it walks like a duck, it's quacks like a duck, I don't know. Might be a duck.
As I was reading some of the live chat, this is towards where I started the show. There was a lot of evil Nathan kind of. So there was a few people starting with the evil Nathan thing, but then it bit by bit it kind of petered out where Nathan wasn't too bad if he just was a little less abrasive, or he, kind of what is this? If he stopped thinking he knew everything, or this kind of thing. They couldn't really pin Nathan down on anything other than shouting at people.
Was he the only one called evil? I want to be evil. I want to be evil.
I didn't see any mention of anyone else. I didn't see mention of anyone but Nathan. Not a mention of QE or anything. Even though QE did the whole thing the other night. Because what are they going to say? All they can do is attack Nathan for shouting at people. And that's mostly the ballers he was shouting at, if you remember right. Who deserve it? Nathan doesn't shout at people who don't deserve it.
Well, I got the timestamp of the video that I wanted reviewed, but I'll hold off on it.
But there is a probability that Nathan will holler at people that don't deserve it. Therefore, entropy doesn't apply to the sun.
I mean, that is basically what has happened already based on the probability and non-description of it not happening seems only reasonable.
Yeah, it's likely that he will shout at someone who doesn't deserve it. So that means entropy doesn't apply to this one.
No, it does. It's just that the gravitation and the probably something electrostatic because of the plasma electric reactions, right? It all keeps it in until it becomes too unstable and then it explodes.
Hyperthrusters are go.
Hey, sorry, I just paid attention at school. No, actually,
Hey,
I made
I just like Voltron.
when
So what?
everybody applauded. That's what really happened.
She just thought too far into the wrong direction. She just went guns blazing with it. Off of one fallacious question.
Yeah, but that's that's what you do. Being an astrophysicist, you have to waste a lot of time. And you have to do it in a way that people don't understand how you are wasting their time. And that way you get a lot of people that stay interested, think you're brilliant because they just don't get it yet. You have to stay ahead of their understanding, ahead of that curve. Because there is a growth curve.
I think that's just a consequence of her education. Because it's not really a globe thing. As we can see, the flat earthers are doing the same exact thing. So,
Well, look, you
Yeah.
take over the techniques and habits of your enemies. That's just what happens, right?
Oh,
Is it?
Yeah, a lot of people do.
That's what Baldwin does.
That naturally happens unless you have personal principles and safeguards to prevent some of those influences. If you don't have that, or you let go of them, you just become your enemy. The classic.
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. What does that
Is
make?
it more
the friend
likely?
of my enemy.
Unless the Jewish.
Oh, brother.
Okay.
What?
Is it more likely?
That's what I asked, but I got rumpus.
Yeah, you rumpus the middle of my sentence. Thank you.
Eli,
What's up?
stay till the after show. I got a question.
all right, got you. I was planning to stay anyway. I wanted the rest of the guys to hear that video. Well, the 24/7 conversation from the other day.
You sure you want to let him hear it?
Why not?
All right.
Am I supposed to be playing something or something?
I sense an indictment coming.
Am I supposed to be playing something or something? What's going on?
Yeah, or something.
I think it's more likely that you don't.
Okay, well, this is a wonderful conversation killer then. Glad you brought it up.
You're welcome.
Well, because it is more likely you don't, therefore heliocentrism is true.
Wait, so did we get to the end of the Sabine video? Did she declare why she titled it that way, or did we figure out why?
No,
Why
we'll
was
find out
title-
tomorrow though, I'm sure. Or we'll
It's
move on.
likely we did.
Or we'll move on inexplicably and never mention it again.
Copy that. I don't
Shout
really
out.
care, but it's just curious.
Shout out to Ask Dad Anything. This is thanks for refusing to compromise and fraternizing with the ball zealots. Okay. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Amen to that. Yeah.
It goes way above. It goes way above fraternization.
Hold on, we're going to get into this again when I said I was specifically accused of fraternizing with ball-tards when they would come in their numbers thinking they could win.
You never fraternize. That's not fraternization.
Okay. I'm just saying what I was accused of.
There must be a word for it. Destroying them. There must be a word for it.
But at the time, maybe we weren't. Maybe we weren't as educated and as disciplined when that criticism was made of me. No?
It's
What
like
the hell are we
Perhaps
even
not.
talking about?
But you still destroyed them.
Well, thank you.
Well, that was more likely.
Here we go. What have I started?
Yeah, I agree with QE. It's well beyond fraternization. That's why
Well,
there was
that's
a
why
love
he
house
had to
around
take.
him and them too. Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's why he had to take the day off. You know, there's a lot of mouth rinsing have to go after some shit like that. You know.
If you do enough kissing kind of stuff, you'll end up with sore lips.
Yeah, yeah. Just some things Clorox will not take the taste out of your mouth, though.
That's just hyperbole. Just hyperbole.
Hyperbole. Hyperbole. Hyperbole.
Hume doesn't even have to give a response to any of that. He doesn't even have to address any of that. He got what he wanted. And he knows it.
And a high five and a slap on the ass at the end.
I see he invited
Because that's how celestial navigation works on a ball. The fuck.
How come he's not coming here?
Because we're evil.
How come nobody in the Globebusters chat that I looked at mentioned QE, pointing out how all these elevation angles are right angle triangles? How come nobody addressed that?
How come
I watched
McToon's
about
got in
15
touch with
minutes.
all? Sorry, Brian. How come McToon's got in touch with Alwyn and wants to debate it on Alwyn's show?
Yeah, he sent me that email. That's right. Ridiculous. But apparently he pays attention to my activities, so that's interesting. Yeah, for the record, I'm not going to go on a show with McToon. I mean, what the hell am I going to do there?
Makes you think that when McToon smiled after he got Jaron to say that about that's how it works on a ball, he might have been smiling at us, don't you think?
I have no doubt.
Yeah, Fox's smile.
The false Freudian smile. Yep.
It's about Freudian. It's duping delight. He's just pleased. You know, if you're struggling to get past an argument that you can't get an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline, and your flat earth opponent says, "Oh, I totally understand how you can get an angle from a curve," then you're going to be delighted with the outcome, aren't you?
No, I can totally relate to them. Yeah. But they're not even aware of what they're doing. I don't know, maybe some of them are.
You've yet to demonstrate a curve yet, haven't they?
I think
that one.
Demonstrate, please.
I think McToon was well aware of what he was doing. I don't think he wasn't.
Dude, they all are. They all are.
That's a fact.
You mean Herman
They
Munster
fucking know what
blockhead?
they're doing, cunt.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's not. Hold on a second. What the hell? That's Herman Munster blockhead, McBooger eater.
Herman Munster blockhead.
That's a good description. But I want to know why he's not contacting QE, Flat Earth Debate, 10th Man, Brian.
Listen, the last time
Because he has to
he
pay
showed
his
up
fee if he
here,
contacts me.
the last time he showed up here, he showed up with fight the tight shirt with some sort of an award, right?
With his
Instead
mute
of-
button on.
yeah. Without actually presenting any evidence or any argument or anything, just we're here to present you guys in an award. That's what we got between the two of us. We both showed up here at the same time to do that. Instead of destroy your arguments and show everybody how we're living on a magical spinning water ball flying around in a vacuum. Nah. We ain't gonna do that.
Well, that's because a gas giant is solid enough.
Solid enough. QE, at what point does a gas giant become solid enough?
That's the wrong question. It's when is it more likely?
Copy that. Well, according to my equation over here,
I
it's
might
not
be
very
hanging
likely,
myself,
but it's likely.
but I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced that you can't have a ball with air.
You're gonna have to be a bit more specific. A ball with air? What do you mean?
Just the ball with air. Like I'm not convinced that you can't have that. Like like it's pretty fucking out there.
You mean a
Out where?
ball with air?
Ball with air where?
On the outside of it?
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna retract that. I'm gonna fucking get owned on that statement for sure. For sure. I'm not convinced myself, but I know for a fact you guys are gonna fucking own me on that.
Wow.
It's very likely.
You're saying our reputations precede us, okay? But
yeah, no, fucking you guys are gonna fucking destroy me on that for sure.
Try not to
No
swear too
swearing.
much. Try not to
No
swear.
swearing.
I'm not convinced, but I know you'll fucking destroy me.
No swearing.
But you've obviously had
sorry.
you've interjected your feelings because they're strong. I get that bit, but why? Just give us a why. You don't have to worry about getting destroyed. We'll be gentle with you, I promise.
Okay. I'll give it to you. I'm not like the idea of air molecules going up like towards the vacuum. Okay, I get that it's gonna go into the vacuum, all right? Like, but apart from that, like, I don't know, like going up, eventually it's gonna stop bouncing into other air molecules, and then the only force acting upon it is going to be the gravity in big quotations. That's the only thing that's going to be bringing it back down at that point. So, like, why would the air escape if it's... But yeah, I know you guys are going to destroy me on this. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's too many things you have to... go ahead, John. There's about 50 things wrong.
Are you standing in a space where gas fills space?
Oh, fuck knows, man. just try and deliver it to me.
No, just
why doesn't it, like, because it's all bouncing, right? And then it gets thinner and thinner as it goes out, and then eventually it's not bouncing anymore. And the only force acting upon it is supposedly in their system is the gravity, and then it like comes back down to Earth.
Can I ask you a question?
I'm not sure that the like.
I'm thinking no, Adam.
I'm thinking no. He wants to carry on making the same false claim. Yeah. So you've now made.
No, I'm sure I am. I'm sure I am. Like, I have no idea what claim I'm making with this.
Gravity affects the behavior of gas molecules. But for all of this to continue and your logic to succeed, you've made that claim. But in their world, they'll make the statement that no, gravity does not have any effect on the behavior of gas molecules. The only time they ever try to enforce that is when it's got to your Corman line, as you're trying to allude. But there is no citation anywhere or a demonstration that you can show where in fact it's the complete opposite, isn't it? Gas molecules, as you said, are free to move in all directions. based on
Exactly,
the
and that's
mass
why I don't
collision.
believe it. You can't demonstrate that. You can't demonstrate gravity.
But the
Oh,
balloon,
we know that.
balloon is the bottom of the balloon more expanded than the top.
Yeah, but is that gravity?
For you, it'd have to be, wouldn't it? Eventually, if I keep the balloon in
Well,
the same place,
for a glober,
over
yeah, I'm not
time,
glober,
the
but yeah,
bottom
yeah,
of the
yeah,
balloon
yeah.
is going to have a higher pressure because you're saying that the gas molecules are subject to this force you've stated as gravity. How and why wouldn't the balloon do that then?
Pretty much, they're just relying on gravity, right? That's about that the oxygen comes back down because of gravity, all right? That's how it works.
No, that's kind of little delusion, isn't it? Yeah. Because
No,
at
well,
what
that's what
point
they
does
think.
the
Yeah,
kinetic speed of the molecule achieve zero and then reverse back? What would be the temperature for a gas molecule to have a static speed while still being a gas molecule?
Well, it would just reverse because of gravity, right?
No. What would be the
That's
speed
how
that
things
it
work.
would have? What would be the temperature it'd have to be for a gas molecule to be having zero kinetic energy, and then have this magical force and able to turn it around? So not a collision-based change of movement, but
Yeah.
a depletion of kinetic energy, and then somehow a recharging of this kinetic energy with your magic gravity. What
Yeah,
temperature would it
I
have
love how you
to
guys
be
just
to
destroy
get the kinetic
imaginary
energy to
forces
zero?
that people make up. But yeah,
It's a concept.
go on. You're killing it.
I'm slightly confused about your statement.
Adam hasn't answered.
You,
He's thrown out. He's essentially thrown it back to Adam. Adam can now answer, which may have been rhetorical. Let's just do it. I don't know, Adam. What temperature would a gas molecule have to be to remain gas and stop, and then return back to from whence it came? I don't know what temperature, Adam.
Let's go with
It would
that.
be
That's a good question.
theoretical temperature that we couldn't achieve at absolute zero, minus 273 Kelvin. But the only way that you could withdraw all of the kinetic energy out of the molecule to prevent it, i.e. decelerate it and stop it continuing in an unimpeded way, and then you've still then got to obviously add your magic gravity that somehow charges up the kinetic batteries of this molecule. Yeah? The description of how gravity is supposedly depleting them recharging to prevent the escape of gas molecules is nonsensical in itself. We've got this gravity force which somehow now affects kinetic energy of the gas particles, yeah, to deplete and then recharge in the opposite polarity. It's kind of nonsensical, but fundamental to their claim.
I'm just slightly confused about the original statement.
Well, the original
you said
statement, I don't know. I'm asking for an explanation of something that like no one really has. So that's I don't
hold
know.
on one second.
What's that?
You guys are
you
definitely
said-
right though. No one has the fucking answer, and
Am
it's
I-
definitely not the globe.
Am I not talking? Can I ask you a question about your statement? You said the air goes up, and then somehow this whatever you're calling gravity somehow brings
So
it
if
back
it was
down.
a ball, yes, then the air would eventually bounce up into the atmosphere high above and bounce out into the like into the spaceland, and but yeah, no, that doesn't happen.
I get that. But my question is well, you're saying it's going to come back down, but if whatever you're calling
gravity, I'm assuming gravity.
Can I finish the statement,
I'm
bro?
assuming gravity.
Can I finish the statement, brother?
Yeah, sorry.
Whatever it is that you're calling gravity, if it exists, why would it allow the air to go up in the first place?
I don't know, man. But I'm trying to think in a baller's like
because
sense,
it
you know, like I'm
doesn't
trying to think
exist.
as a baller, you know.
Well, there's a second part of
But
it.
yeah,
Phil.
I'd love for them to explain gravity
Here's
for
where
me
the
to like
problem
be able.
is.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just grasping at
here's where the
straws, man.
problem
They
is. The
don't have a
problem was
proper
introduced before
understanding.
you even said.
Holy shit!
Yeah, nah. You're all talking over each other.
Hey, Molnar.
Sorry, boys. You go ahead.
Molnar,
You go
hold
ahead.
on one second. Hold on one second. Molnar, when you make a point, go ahead and make a point and stop. And then don't
Yeah,
talk
sorry,
after that
sorry, boys. Yeah,
until
yeah,
there's
yeah.
a break. And don't talk, don't nod along audibly and agree because you're cutting everyone's mic off. Okay?
Roger.
Yeah,
No,
nah.
I got you. Yeah. I won't.
So-
Sorry, boys.
Yeah, nah. Go on mute.
So the problem came before you even said anything about gravity because you think that a gas molecule, like Adam pointed out, is gonna somehow lose energy. But your assumption there is wrong. That's the problem.
It's worse than that.
Hang on. Why
because
wouldn't a gas molecule lose energy if it's going into a lower energy area? What are you talking about? Are you serious? That statement was like, what?
It would. Adam explained it to you earlier. He asked you, and you said it was a good question. At what temperature would it have to relinquish its energy to the point where it stops? And then he answered, absolute zero.
Absolute zero, right?
Right,
Yeah.
does that happen?
No, I'm not just claiming anything.
Well, the answer's no, it
No, you're
doesn't.
assuming it in your question.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. It's a loaded question, and I knew it. I knew it's loaded. That's all I said. I don't know. I didn't say that exactly, but yeah, I applied it.
Are you a new flatty and you're like looking for explanations for your old globe belief?
No, I just love to hear these. Yeah, I guess I'm new. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I like to hear these new explanations. I want to hear it from. I know this is one of the big ones that I talk to other people about, and they think that no, that gravity just brings the air back. All right, like it just goes away and then it comes back. Once it like can't bounce off anything, it comes back.
Okay, step
and
one
this is
in that.
what a lot of globers think.
But that goes
100%.
back to my question before. If
I
what
don't
you're
think
saying
this, but yes,
exists,
this is
why
what
would it
people
go
think.
anywhere in the first place?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because of bouncing.
Where
it not
do
gonna
you
eventually
think
bounce
this
up?
supposed gravity? Because you're kind of talking like gravity is a force, which it hasn't been in over 100 years. But skipping that, you're
I'm well aware.
saying
I'm well aware of that.
right. Okay, so
I'm
where would
more
that
kind of
supposed
like
force be
I'm
the
playing
strongest?
devil
according-
advocate, guys. Like seriously, I don't fucking believe in this shit. I'm
got that.
playing
Kick
devil
'em out.
advocate, and I'm
Kick
like,
'em out.
what, this is
And
what
that's cool. That's
this is
cool. There
what I
might be
would think
somebody else
as
that's
a
listening
baller.
that might have. Oh my god!
You're still over talking people non-stop.
I'm done.
Yeah, do you realize that gas molecules would be bringing temperature with them?
We
You understand that?
We just covered that. Absolute zero.
No, bringing
Yeah, if it's
temperature with
moving,
them. What I mean
if
is
it's
that.
moving, it has temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, what I mean is that
But what's the point?
it's not like within that paradigm, they're trying to state that one gas particle or molecule gets to the Kármán line and then it just is brought back down. That's what they're basically trying to say. That's what they basically try to claim. But if there's going to be a lot more than one, and that all of the gas molecules that will be getting to that point would be bringing temperature with them because they have kinetic energy. Now, what temperature are they meeting up at a vacuum? They're not meeting any temperature, are they? But they're
So
creating
you're gonna
the
meet a
temperature.
force. Is that what you're suggesting?
They're creating the temperature.
Yeah. That makes
That's
sense.
why
Yeah.
gas will fill a vacuum because it has a temperature before it reaches the vacuum. But that doesn't mean there isn't lower pressure up high. There is lower pressure up high. But what stops the gas from, let's just say, what stops the gas from, best way to describe it is most of our gas and our air pressure, and I mean the majority of it, I'm talking between 75 to 85% of all our air is below cloud level, right? Now that's only a couple of miles up. If you went up to 22 miles high, there is very low pressures, right? But there is a certain amount of gas up there. But most gases never get past, or the majority of gas doesn't get past 10 miles. Because at 10 miles high, the temperature is so low that there is such little kinetic energy, only a small amount of the gas gets past that. But the temperature starts to rise again past 10 miles up. But with the available space that is up there, let's just say there was another 25 miles to fill, right? After the 10 miles. Let's say there's 35 miles to fill, right? Whatever, 45. The point is that whatever gas gets past that minus 51 degrees at 10 miles up, whatever gas gets past that has to fill the rest. But that little bit of gas is obviously not causing this this rising temperature. So what's causing the rise in temperature? Is it radiative heat from the sun affecting, being in... what's creating this rise in
Just
temperature?
look it up. Hold on. Got an answer. It may have been rhetorical. Gravity.
Yeah, what's the answer, Nathan?
Well, I would state radiative heat created by the sun on a container. Radiative heat.
Yeah.
Through it.
The sun's up there.
That's a possibility, but I don't know.
Yeah, but the sun's up there in the second law of thermodynamics violation of
Dude,
sky vacuum.
none of us know.
Because of gravity. So, seems reasonable.
I say it's Earth moving up.
Also seems reasonable.
I don't like the whole
Please
none
don't
of
say
us
that.
know statement. The more accurate thing is you ask the question that had a problem within it in the first place. That's the problem. It's not none of us know. You asked a bad question because there was an assumption in it.
Yeah, Mulder, this is your problem. And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live and, strictly speaking, semi-after show possible because it stayed live the whole time, which is wonderful. Also, of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hitting me up on PayPal and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!